On behalf of the Citizens Review Committee and the City Council, the County Commissioners, and the Mayor, I want to thank you all for coming out tonight and participating in this community event. With the concurrence of the Mayor and the City Council, they appointed 6-member Citizen Review Committee. And they are going to introduce themselves to you themselves in just 1 minute, because I want to explain to you what the Citizen Review Committee will not be doing as a part of their process. It's entitled Individual Complaints. And while I'm sure you all can read, bear with me. The committee is not charged with the evaluation or disposition of individual complaints by or against citizens. Citations for alleged unlawful behavior and complaints by individuals concerning police action will be resolved either through court action, negotiation, or through review and disposition by appropriate local, state, or federal governmental agencies. Individuals who wish to file a complaint concerning the performance of a specific officer or officers may do so by completing the City of Missoula's Citizen Complaint Form, which is available at the front table, or it can be obtained from the office of the Mayor. Citizens may also make complaints by writing the United States District Attorney for the District of Montana, who's with us tonight and part of the panel, or calling for an appointment at the phone number listed. General complaints or concerns should be addressed to either the committee or the office of the Mayor. We're going to ask everybody when it comes time to sign up and to speak tonight to provide contact information. That's a very important part of this process. Because this particular forum does not allow for a dialogue back and forth from members of the panel to the audience or vice versa, there needs to be a way that they can contact you individually should the need arise. You may also submit any testimony in writing, should be addressed to the Citizens Committee in care of the Mayor's office. You should also note that tonight's proceedings are being recorded, and you can listen to a replay of that on MCAT on Thursday, the 24th of this month, from 9 until noon. Friday, the 25th of this month, from 9:30 to 12:30. And on Sunday, the 27th, from 2 until 5. And should that not work for you, MCAT is going to make available the tape for replay at their offices. Following the panel's self-introductions, they will begin hearing from you, which is what tonight is all about. I'm your timer, and we do need to limit the statements to 3 minutes in order to allow anybody who wants to speak tonight to have that opportunity. And what I'll do is I'll be sitting right here. I have my trusty kitchen timer that's been through a lot of such meetings. I'll give you a little notice when you have about 30 seconds left, and then the timer will go off. And by all of us adhering to that rule, you'll be giving your neighbors opportunities to speak. While the panel is very interested in hearing firsthand accounts, they want to make clear that they want to hear from anybody who has something that they would like to address to them tonight. You should also know that this same panel will have 2 additional public meetings. This Saturday from 9 until noon, the committee will meet with the Chief of Police, Pete Lawrenson, and his command staff. And on Monday at 3 p.m., the committee will meet with field officers. Again, both of those meetings are open to the public, and I believe both will be held at the City Hall. Yes. Now I want to quote your committee chair, Jack Mudd, who in the newspaper this morning mentioned that tonight is an opportunity for all of us together to listen to the perspective of the community. You all are in charge of making this a place where listening can be accomplished. A rule I use for myself in having such discussions is, how can I say this in a way that I know it can best be heard? You'll note that up here they do not have applause or jeer meters, okay? So they're not going to be measuring the impact of a particular statement based on those factors. And that can be disruptive to that listening atmosphere. We'd ask that everybody be courteous and attentive to each and every speaker. Now I'd like to turn this over to Jack Mudd to introduce himself as chair of the panel, and thereafter the rest of the panel members.
Good evening. My name is Jack Mudd, and I've been asked to chair this committee. I've had the good fortune of living in this community for the last 30 years. And as tonight demonstrates, this is a community that has a broad range of interests. What we would like to do, as Art just said, is to listen. Our committee is charged with the task of listening to the community and making recommendations about what we might do better in the future, all of us together, if we should face a similar situation. So that's what we're going to try to do. My background is in law. I have been involved with law pretty much ever since I returned to Missoula in 1970. For a time I served as Dean of the Law School here on campus, and I have also served extensively as a mediator in a variety of settings. So I approach this task with open ears and an open mind, as I know the other members of the committee do, and as I would ask all of us in this room to do tonight, to approach this with an attitude of listening to all of our fellow citizens to hear their perspective on these events.
Thanks, Jack. Hello, everybody. I'm Sherry Matusi. I am the United States Attorney for the District of Montana. I went to law school here in Missoula, and although I reside in Billings now, I consider Missoula just as much my hometown as any of the other places I've lived in this state. I was born here. The United States Attorney is appointed by the President as the representative of the United States for litigation purposes and in order to prosecute violations of federal law. I'm here not only because as the United States Attorney I represent all of the citizens of Montana, but because I hope to be able to contribute something to our joint effort to learn from the experiences of this community, not only on behalf of community members, but on behalf of law enforcement. The United States Attorney is the chief federal law enforcement officer in the district, and so part of my role is to work with not only federal, but local, state, and tribal law enforcement agencies in a variety of contexts and work with them to develop effective community policing strategies and other programs and efforts which serve each individual community in the state. I have a dual role on this particular set of circumstances. On the one hand, as the United States Attorney, I am reviewing information related to individual incidents of alleged police excess or unlawful conduct. If I determine that the evidence is sufficient to raise a presumption that there was unlawful conduct on the part of a law enforcement official, I will refer that incident to the appropriate federal agency for formal investigation. Once that formal investigation is completed, then a decision will be made whether it should be pursued at all, whether it should be pursued by my office, or whether it should be referred to the Missoula Police Department for appropriate action in accordance with the City of Missoula's review of its own officials. So that is something I'm doing in addition to serving on this Citizens Review Committee. My role on this committee is as a resource to bring a perspective on law enforcement activities to my colleagues on the committee. Some of you may know or may remember that I was very involved in the Freeman situation in Montana a few years ago. It was my office which prosecuted those cases, and of course you may remember that there was an 87-day standoff between law enforcement and a group of individuals prior to their actual arrest. In that context and in others, I have had the opportunity to learn quite a bit about how law enforcement works and what is necessary in order to develop effective strategic plans and operational techniques. So hopefully I'll have something to contribute to this effort, and I'm very, very optimistic and confident that together we will all learn something, both community members and law enforcement members, that will help us make good decisions in the future. And very much welcome you here tonight and appreciate your participation.
Good evening. My name's Larry Howell. I'm a law professor at the University of Montana School of Law here. All right. I'm also a former journalist who, in that career, covered law enforcement primarily. So I think I have a fairly good familiarity both with people's rights, which seems to be one of the issues that we're looking at, and also police methods, the other half of the equation. I'm also, because I've lived in Missoula since 1982 and I'm raising a family here, I'm also very interested in quality of life here in Missoula. So I'm looking forward to hearing from anyone out there who has either firsthand testimony, what I think of as direct evidence regarding what happened in connection with these events. But I'm also interested in hearing from those of you who, like many of us, myself included, form opinions sometimes based on less than firsthand knowledge. But I'd ask you to remember a couple of things, regardless of which type of information you're going to be giving us. First, you need to remember that we're a fact-finding or an investigative body. We're not taking a poll. So if 99 people get up tonight and all agree and one person gets up and disagrees, that doesn't mean we're going to write a report that favors the view of the 99 people. Okay? So please keep that in mind. I'd also ask you to remember that how you present your views affects your credibility and reflects upon your credibility. Reasonable and thoughtful people are generally perceived as being more credible than people who are incivil or rude or engage in name-calling. That doesn't mean you can't be passionate about what you're going to say tonight. I am convinced many of you will be, but you can be passionate and civil at the same time. Thank you.
Hi there. I'm Molly Neitzel. I'm the ASUM, the Associated Students of the University of Montana president. I have lived in Missoula for 3 years and absolutely love this community. I'm here tonight as someone who has been a protester many times and someone who's been protested in my current office. I'm here as a citizen, as a student, and mostly as a representative of students. And I just want to say, if any of you are students and you were involved or witnessed any of the events in question and haven't contacted me yet, and you feel it's appropriate to do so, please do. I'm very interested in what has happened, especially to students, and feel free to contact me at my office at the university.
Hello, I'm Anita Doyle, and I'm a founding member of the Jeanette Rankin Peace Resource Center, and I currently sit on its coordinating council. And it's in that capacity that I have been asked to sit on this panel. I feel like bring a somewhat unique perspective to the panel in that, of course, the Jeanette Rankin Peace Center is very well aware of the historical merit of social protest. It has served us many, many times as a country and as countries globally to get things rolling in a direction that they need to go. So we understand the need for that. At the same time, just 2 years ago or less than, the Peace Center awarded Chief Lawrenson our Peacemaker of the Year award because we have seen him as a man who has repeatedly demonstrated interest in civil rights and human rights in this community, something he was nominated for particularly by the Indian community. So I look forward to serving on this committee. I feel a great openness to hearing from everybody about what your experience has been, and I thank you for being here.
Hi, I'm Jim Burfine. I'm a professor here of sociology at the University of Montana, and I teach courses in criminology and the criminal justice system. Many of our students that take courses in criminology go on to work in the criminal justice system, some as police officers. I'm also a member of the Peace Officers Standard and Training Council of the state of Montana, which is a governor-appointed council that reviews the standards with regard to training of police officers and detention officers. So I look forward to your comments here tonight.
Thank you, members of the panel. I was told that I misstated, and I have no doubt about my making mistakes, that August 24th, on Thursday, that MCAT telecast begins at 9 p.m. Now, what we would like you to do is to form a line if you wish to speak, and you'll come down this side. However, if there's some of you who are up here right now who want to get there, please walk in front of me right now and do that. And then you will sign up with Claire, who's at the end of the table. And we'll go ahead and begin taking 3-minute statements. I also failed to mention, and I hope you know it, I just assumed that you have your entire city council present. Maybe their only free night of the week. They choose to be here, as well as the county commissioners and the mayor. And I think that just goes to the import that they feel about these particular issues.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here. My name is Reed Smith. I live in Frenchtown, post office box 346. I think I lost there we go. Post office box 346, it's on the card with the phone number. First of all, I'm not here to criticize the police. My approach to looking into this issue has been looking at the process, looking at the laws, and how did we get to the situation we found ourselves in downtown Missoula when this thing occurred. I think I'd like to start off by commenting about the makeup of the committee. I would have liked to have seen more people on the committee outside the legal and the university environment. Maybe somebody that was actually at the site, that was not involved in the action. And a couple more citizens probably that just uninvolved but interested. But anyway, my approach was, as I said, to look at the documents. I looked at the interagency agreements that the agencies, the police force, had to put together to bring in the outside forces.
And I found a number of problems with those as far as I was concerned in whether or not they met the legal requirements of the law, and they certainly did not seem to provide the detail that was required by the law. Also, as I read the law, the governor was supposed to approve those, and I guess the Attorney General would sign for him. But in the Attorney General's signature, it states that they approved it in form. Well, they were supposed to approve it in content also. And I think that's a major issue. This was no small event, which brings up the resolution that the county commissioners had signed, which most people don't know about, at least I don't think they do. On the 25th of July, the county commissioners had signed a resolution 060-2000, which declared an emergency for this event. That brought in the emergency plan. They cited that, section 303. It also has terminology about extraordinary measures. I would like to find out exactly what those mean, and basically what were the rules when the public met with the police down there on that street. I think the significance of this whole event is a lot more than just the city of Missoula or the county of Missoula or even the state. It seems like, this is the first time that I'm aware of that this kind of force has been brought in to Montana for any kind of an event. And it seemed to me like we need to take account of that and decide, is this where we want to go? We need to find out how it happened, why it happened, and if we need to change some laws, that's what we need to know about, and hopefully the committee will let us know what things we can go to get this changed.
Your 3 minutes are up, sir. Thank you. And if everybody could do the same thing by introducing themselves at the microphone as well, that would be appreciated.
Hello, I'm Tamara Stepper. I'm here tonight to tell you, as a decent, tax-paying citizen of the city, I stand behind the movement here. While visiting family in Eugene, Oregon this summer, a riotous demonstration of anarchists broke out in downtown Eugene, Oregon. The mayor of Eugene told the rioters that they were not welcome and he would not tolerate their destructive nature, and he stood behind his police department. Mayor Katus, if you feel being a police officer is so easy, then why don't you put on a uniform and a bulletproof vest and patrol your beloved streets? Why don't you get a real feel of how your radical left-wing criminals treat its women and men in uniform? Would you like to be spit on, cursed at, shot at, and even paralyzed by one of your radicalist citizens? I would dare to say you would not. I say to you, Mayor Katus, grow a spine. Tell all of these bongo-beating left-wing criminals they are not welcome to ruin our fair city and destroy the shared pride our community has. You and the city council are not doing any of us decent law-abiding community members any favors by backing down to these sniveling radicalists. To keep this city as we all know and love it, we must bind together and take a stand against radical behavior, or our community will end up just as Los Angeles' communities, with bars on their windows and doors and afraid to walk down the streets. Thank you.
My name is Chad Harder. I live at 130 Kensington Avenue, and I am the photographer for the Missoula Independent. I was supposed to cover the downtown scene that night and report on the Hells Angels, the police presence, and the people of Missoula's reaction. I love my job, but believe me, I hate this stuff. I hate drunk motorcycle gangs loaded with bad attitude, just as much as I hate seeing officers abuse their duty and get out of hand on the people of Missoula. But although I hate any kind of testosterone-fed frenzy, I have a grave and important duty to the people who were fortunate enough to not be downtown those nights. It is my duty, protected by our nation's First Amendment, to bring back images of what happened those nights and share them with the community. Apparently, the police disagree. I was photographing a man being arrested at 3:15 Sunday morning. I was pepper sprayed in the face, soaking my camera gear, and as I turned to leave, I was sprayed in the back repetitively. I was not a threat. I was not part of a rally. I was not part of a protest. I was doing my job. Anybody who knows me knows that I would much rather be in bed than standing around in all that tension in the middle of the night. Earlier in the evening, I had spoke with officers. My press pass had been around my neck, large and for all to see. 3 separate officers on 3 separate occasions informed me that there would be no tolerance this evening, that they recognized me from the night before, and that I'd better watch it. Watch what? I was there strictly to shoot a cover story, and boy, they gave it to me. But I was not the only member of the media targeted. A videographer from KPAX TV was thrown to the ground when he refused to let an officer smash his camera. At least 2 other members of the media were intimidated and strong-armed by police officers. Why would the police force want the media not to be present? What are they trying to hide? City Council member Jim McGrath is concerned that the people of Missoula live in fear of their police force. We need to find out why. Also, we need to move forward. There are 3 things that absolutely must come from this debacle. 1, we need full disclosure. I maintain great faith in Chief Lawrenson, and although he claims ultimate responsibility for the occurrences that happened those nights, I believe that we need to know who ordered the officers to arrive in riot gear when there was no riot. I want to know who ordered pepper spray to be used indiscriminately on the people of Missoula. Each and every document that pertained to the Hells Angels Task Force is relevant to those nights, and each of them should have the veil of secrecy removed and entrusted to the public. Nothing about the Hells Angels should remain classified from the people of Missoula. There should be nothing to hide. The second thing we need to see is full accountability. Each officer, whether he or she was being pro-community, conversation-sharing, good cop, or an enraged, pepper-spraying, citizen-shoving, out-of-state officer, needs to be accountable. Which brings us to the third thing. We do absolutely need to move forward. We need to follow the lead of England, where pepper spray is...
3 minutes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
The panel wants to have me remind you that you can submit anything in writing, such as the gentleman who was just speaking seemed to have something in writing, and it will be considered by them just as live testimony.
Good evening. My name is Bob Lucino. I live on Brook Street. Lived in Missoula for 22 years. I think as long as all of us are spending our time here this evening on a hot night when maybe we'd rather be somewhere else, it's my hope that we all get the most out of it. And if we're going to have this kind of community discussion, I really hope, my number one hope is that the Missoula Police Department can feel affirmed at the end of this process, and that our community at the same time can learn, and that the Missoula Police Force can learn as well. I know that we're all human. I've had the privilege of traveling around the world. I've been in Belfast, and I have tasted sectarian violence in Northern Ireland. I've been in Romania. I was personally interrogated by the secret police there in the early 90s. I lived in Newark, New Jersey for a year, right after the riots, and I grew up in suburban New York. And you know what? I feel real safe, even tonight, living in Missoula, Montana. And I feel I've always admired and had great respect for the Missoula Police Force. I also know they're human like me, and they can make mistakes. And if there's an evening that's 100 degrees, and if people have been pelting me in my back on other Saturday nights downtown with empty beer bottles, or if there's people yelling at me, or if there's people who are in altered states and breaking the law, and who won't disperse when asked to, yeah, I'm human, and I don't know who the individual police were that possibly did use excessive force, and I don't discount that. I just am concerned that at the end of the road that we make this process as constructive as possible. And my concern is for balance and for context, and that we remember that we're all in this together. I do know that there was a little bit over 100 arrests that night, and I also know that at any given Grizzly Bobcat weekend, when the Grizzly Bobcat game is in Missoula, there's typically and can be over 200 arrests in this town. Thank you for giving us all an opportunity to speak. And if I can leave you with anything, I would like to leave you with this thought about balance. And my last comment is my wife and I were driving through the downtown that night, and I felt in all my 22 years of living here, I had never seen or tasted anything like what I saw there that night. And we know that when we're in a mob, and Professor Irvine perhaps can bear this out, sometimes we do things and say things that we would never do if we're alone. And I think some of that was present that night. And I also know that mobs can be dangerous. And I think there were a lot of good people in that mob. But mobs can be scary, and the police are the ones on the front line to be a deterrent from lawlessness. And I applaud their human efforts, and I applaud the results that were the focus of their mission.
I've been asked to remind the group that while it's certain that everybody's thoughts are appreciated, it would be helpful if we could limit applause after each statement. Thank you.
My name's Jack Wright. I live on Elk Ridge Road in the Rattlesnake. I've lived in Missoula for 27 years. I'm also a decent tax-paying citizen who was scared by what happened. And I had a reaction to an ad I saw on TV the other day. Pete Lawrenson was on. Excuse me, is the mic there? Hello? Oh, it's on. Pete Lawrenson was on with an officer who had been paralyzed in the line of duty. And they were raising money for a memorial. And I found myself with the reaction I was ashamed of. That was cynicism. I never felt that before. But what I saw on the video, and this is one of the themes I want you to remember, you're going to hear the sounds of knees jerking both left and right tonight. The cops were all wrong. The cops can never be wrong. Look at the video of what actually happened. Let's not turn this into a lightning rod about policing in America. Look at the actual events. And what I saw on that tape, not a soundbite thing that could be manipulated, was a police officer, and I don't know who it was, saying to a bunch of unarmed kids, "I'm my own man, I do what I want." That scares me when that's the policing in my town. I saw a police officer attack this guy on the video when he showed press credentials. That's not America that I want to live in. I saw kids with a poster ripped out of their hands. That's not the America I want to live in. I saw kids on their knees with their hands behind their backs, willing to be arrested nonviolently, and they were pepper sprayed. That's not my America. So I think that there's something happened out here. I don't know who the cops were that did those things, but Pete Lawrenson's a good guy. Doug Chase is a good guy. Most of those cops we see every day are good people. But something broke down. I would ask you, when you're looking at this and you're talking with the cops, look at the video of what actually happened. Thank you.
I have one of those tiny voices, so I'll be right here. My name is Rita Ulaki, P.O. Box 206, Milltown, Montana. Good evening. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you in regard to the events surrounding what is commonly referred to as the Hells Angels event. I am a resident of Missoula County. I attended prayer meetings from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. on Thursday, July 27th through Sunday morning, July 30th. These meetings ended about 2 a.m. in the morning, and that is how I happened to be out at that time on the morning of July 30th and in the area of Higgins and Front. Because of time constraints, I am unable to go into detail what I experienced and saw on that morning. I will tell you this. I saw people get on the awning of the El Cazador restaurant. I saw them drinking beer and throwing beer cans off of the awning and into the crowd. I saw people moving traffic cones to block the cars. I saw many people in the street who made it virtually impossible to move my car out of that area. I will tell you that I was afraid. I was afraid for myself and my 3 passengers. I grew up in the Los Angeles area. I lived there from 1964 until 1984. I worked in the Wilshire district of Los Angeles for 5 years. Your recollection of your history of those years in that area will let you know that I am aware of what a crowd of citizens are capable of. Nor am I easily frightened, but neither am I ignorant of the dangers inherent of a crowd of hundreds of people spoiling for a fight. I had the people in my car roll up the windows and lock the car doors. At the time I was in this situation, I could not see one law enforcement officer. I know, though, that they were in the area and they were waiting for the crowd to disperse on their own. I was there for approximately 15 to 20 minutes and would be happy to testify further to what I saw and experienced for this council or committee at your convenience. Since that incident, I have had a police officer ask me what I thought the police should have done differently. If I had been asked on that evening, I would have said that they should have entered the area sooner and dispersed the crowd. But I had no idea that the very people who blocked traffic, harassed cars, threw objects, and generally participated in what I perceived to be illegal and dangerous activities would be surprised when the police used standard and successful tactics to prevent an out-of-control crowd from deteriorating into a violent mob. I know now that it wouldn't have made any difference. This crowd would not disperse on its own, as the police had hoped. Indeed, it would not disperse when it was told to repeatedly by officers. I have heard about alleged violations of the civil rights of individuals in the crowd that morning. What I would like to better understand is how their civil rights superseded mine. That night I was illegally detained by people who refused to let me leave the area. I lost my right to drive a main street in downtown Missoula without fear because the first time in the 16 years I've lived here, I was afraid for my person, my family, and my property. The officers did not come into the area when I would have them come, but rather refrained and entered the area when they had no other choice. They came into the area to restore order before any business was damaged and before any people were injured by flared tempers or impaired judgments. Okay.
Thank you.
I have 180 signatures from citizens of Missoula I'd like to submit.
I think you submit that to Claire at the end of the table. Thank you.
Leonard Stark, number 31, Sunrise Terrace, House District 69. The question isn't whether or not the police department acted appropriately with some individuals. The question is whether overall they acted illegally when they lost their own self-control. Anyone who has studied the United States Constitution, Article 2, Section 33, knows that the Constitution was broken by importing armed officers from out of state. Anybody who studied Article 11, Section 7, can see that the proper interpretation of that is for local government to cooperate when they go out of state. And it's explicit by not naming armed officers in that act. Therefore, any interpretation to the contrary is ultra vires and null and void. I'd like to point out to I've got a federal court in interest to our esteemed federal representative here, I'd like to point out United States Supreme Court judgment Tennessee versus Garner, 471 U.S. 1 in 1985, where the justice declared that lethal force against unarmed civilians is unconstitutional. I can repeat that here at your convenience. So it's no question from an objective viewpoint that the scenario was illegal. But I would like to submit suggestions that be done to come to for the community rally with compassion and understanding for the policemen and come to their assistance because we owe them for past performance. And there are ways of determining if in fact they were out of control because of prior history of stress, and which would lead to a lot of neuroendocrinological factors. And one way to prove that out is to give them EEG, MRI, urinalysis, blood sample, and hair strand analysis tests.
3 minutes.
If you want more information on this, feel free to contact me. Thank you.
I think some of you are having a problem with the microphone, and you need to speak directly into it, and because you're also losing on the recast.
Good evening. My name is Ron Ewart. I live at 521 Skyview Drive. Ms. Ulaki stated that she had 180 signatures, and I heard her tell the lady she misspoke. She actually has 1,800 signatures. And I, for one, would like to publicly express my support and my gratitude for all the law enforcement officers who spent a great deal of time away from their homes and their families and their friends to be here to look after our city and our county and to make sure that our people are safe and that our property is not destroyed or harmed in any way. Some people say that we over-prepared, and I don't think we'll ever know whether we over-prepared because we don't know what would have happened had we under-prepared. All we knew is were about cases that had happened in the past, like Steamboat Springs a couple years ago when the Hells Angels held a rally. They basically took over the place. A murder had taken place, and they would not let the police investigate. Those were the kinds of things that had happened before, and we did not know what to expect. So there was a great deal of planning and effort that was underwent in order to make sure that, or to be as sure as possible, that nothing would happen. And luckily, nothing did happen as far as the Hells Angels being here. As far as the events of July 29th, I was not downtown that time, but I do know that this type of occurrence can happen just about any time. A couple months ago, I was driving through downtown at 2 a.m. and I saw a beer bottle fly out of the crowd out in front of the Top Hat. It hit a police car. The officer ran out, apprehended the person who he saw throw the bottle, and suddenly there was probably 100 people that wanted to start problems. So this kind of thing can happen. So we need to deal with it and understand how we're going to take care of this type of problem should it happen again. What if, let's say, for example, a neo-Nazi group or someone decides to come to Missoula, block our intersections, destroy property, threaten the police, throw bottles or whatever? Are we going to just let them do it? No. Whether it's people that live here, people from out of state or wherever, we need to let them know that this kind of behavior will not be tolerated, and we need to come up with a system to deal with this type of situation. I believe that most people support the law enforcement in our city and county, and I know that they support us, and we should do all we can to stand up for what is right. Thank you.
I made the same request when there was a statement that kind of went the other way, so I'll make it after this statement. It would be helpful if you could refrain from the applause at the end of each statement. Thank you.
My name is Rena Deichler. I'm at 840 Speedway, number 1, East Missoula. And I'll just read a copy of the letter that I'll submit. I am adding my voice to those who are saddened and dismayed by events surrounding the visit by the Hells Angels. I'm sad for the people of Missoula because the image of Missoula as a nice town and the pride that we had in that image has been shattered violently by the very people we hired to serve and protect us. Sad to think that professional law officers use tactics designed to subdue violent felons against the young people of this community. Young people, I might add, who were looking forward to being to the Hells Angels what their Missoula identity required: nice. Sad because I had just seen the people of Missoula pour out their heart and souls in grief when one of our law officers was wounded. Sad because I had just memorialize as heroes the law officers who sacrificed their lives serving and protecting us. In return, motorists in the entire area were virtually pickpocketed by local law enforcement in the days before the motorcycle club even arrived here. People were ticketed for cracked windshields, mud flap, and other petty violations. Even if some young people shoved back when they were shoved, the adults in this community should demand a thorough investigation and accountability for the actions of local law enforcement. What happened here does not meet the standards of a free society.
My name is Michael Wussner. I live at 21750 9 Mile Road. I just have a few questions. For the U.S. Attorney, what was the chain of command? And was the governor of Montana involved, and to what degree? Who paid for the police riot gear? Was that federal money or Missoula taxpayer money? Police forces around the country are accumulating street combat gear for what reason? To do street combat against U.S. citizens who are illegally demonstrating? It appears to me that the police are becoming the provocateurs. These are the steps to totalitarianism.
Good evening. My name is Charles Ray Doty. I've lived in Missoula 65 out of the 70 years of my life, and I'm very proud of the city, and I'm also very proud of the police department, which I worked for 20 years. The week of the Hells Angels in Missoula, I came out of retirement and volunteered to work for the Command Central at the high school. And believe me, I'm glad I did, because there was an extreme amount of business there. It's something that the 911, which is a very good system that we have in this area, and the Highway Patrol, those two agencies could not possibly have handled all the business that was handled during the few days that the Hells Angels were here in Missoula. This is very important for you to realize that there was such an increase in the demand for law enforcement that they had at the command center. We had possibly 8 or 9 monitors that were taking care of calls that we heard that had to be distributed to parts of agencies that were out within the city and within the law enforcement community. It was very important that the people that volunteered that night were there. Without it, I'm sure that it would have been impossible to handle all the calls that were influxed during that period of time. And not only the Hells Angels, something else you haven't heard anything of, and that was the overflow of the Rainbow Group that were also in Missoula that night. And we had quite a bit of trouble with their influx down in the downtown area. Now, I know a lot about the downtown area because I lived on Front Street for 4 years during my high school career here. And I saw a lot of activity in Front Street, and if a policeman come up to me while I was on the street during that period of time and said, "Go home," I went home. There wasn't any argument. So I just got my 30 seconds and I don't need them. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Chris Lefelt. I live at 521 North Higgins. I moved to Missoula 3 years ago to begin going to school here, and I've always thought the relationship with the police has been exemplary. I was at a party 2 years ago where there was a crowd of around 300 people, drunk and belligerent, that the police had to disperse. And a lot of officers showed up, and they did it in the most polite manner. Everyone left in a very... It was a very drunk crowd. The officers were very polite. Then comparing that to what just happened, I don't know. I think we need to do a lot to try and figure out what's happening with us, the community and the police officers. I'm very glad so many people showed up and are so concerned about that. And I'd like to thank you for your time.
Right. Eric Lynn, 340 Jefferson, 829-9314. A number of my friends flat out hate the police and have for some time. I had looked at their hatred with a bit of skepticism, believing that at least in our community, most officers were fairly responsible in carrying out their work and weren't deserving of such blind hatred. But after what I personally experienced, I am now struggling between my old feelings toward police and a deadly new amalgamation of distrust and general malevolence. Protesting what I saw as an excessive and superfluous display of force supplied by the hysteria of Missoula and paranoia of the hygienic intolerance, I was arrested Saturday, July 30th at approximately 8:30 p.m. What I saw forever changed my view of police in general. Rudely barked and often incoherent conflicting orders that were not followed immediately led to dozens of my fellow protesters being thrown on the ground, brutally kicked or crushed by swarms of panic-stricken officers. I was among them. My head hit the asphalt hard. An officer's knee followed, holding my head down, straining my skull. Another held my legs while another's knee crushed my back, forcing the air out of my lungs. "Can you ease up?" I gasped. "I can't breathe." The officer sharply replied, "No, you should have thought of that before you came down here, dummy." What about freedom of assembly, I thought. What about human compassion? I also got a similar response when I asked him to kindly loosen the 2 pairs of plastic handcuffs that were slicing my wrists, cutting off the circulations and swallowing my purpling hands. "I'm completely willing to cooperate," I said. "Can't we just talk about this civilly?" "Not here, not now, you little piece of shit," was my reply. At the jail, before I was frisked again, the deputy violently groped my genitals and crack. I bit my lip, holding back my tears. Then the deputy said, "I want to strip search this one." It all seemed like some awful dream as I went into the room with him, undressed, lifted my scrotum before him, bent over and coughed as he requested. My feeling of violation and shame grew and grew, becoming as bright as the neon orange jumpsuit they brought for me later, my attire for the next 30 hours. I stayed in a daze the whole time in jail and only faintly heard the discussion outside the door as they talked about what to do with a faggot in the yellow pants. Me. No one else I talked to was strip searched. This forces me to arrive at the morose conclusion that I was surrendered to this fate solely on the basis of my appearance. This is bigotry and prejudice and very near racism and just as intolerable in my mind. This made a lasting traumatic impression upon my life, and I still struggle daily with it. Okay. Thank you.
Bob Deeds, I'm the fire chief for the city of Missoula. I've got a written report for the task force, and I appreciate the opportunity. I could go into detail about the planning and work that we did with law enforcement, along with staffing and extra activities that we had planned to make sure that our community was safe with the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club visit. But I'm not going to go into those details yet. What I want you to know, though, is that life safety and citizen safety were common themes throughout all the planning for this visit. I was at the command post late Saturday and early Sunday morning when the height of all the activity occurred. I want to share with you that about 2:45 or 10 till 3, somewhere in there was a radio communication from law enforcement that a woman had fallen out of a pickup truck and she was injured and unconscious. The 911 center dispatched our engine from fire station number 1. We responded. We staged a little bit at the intersection of Front and Higgins. The captain made a size up, did an assessment, and felt that the crowd, which was in a semicircle of about 150 to 200 people, he was willing to bring his crew in to see what kind of care he could provide to the victim. As time went on, we did patient assessment. One of our firefighters for the City of Missoula Fire Department was hit in the back with a full can of beer while doing patient care. That's something that probably most people don't know. At some point, law enforcement moved in and dispersed the crowd. The firefighter wasn't seriously injured, but the mechanism of injury, something thrown from the crowd to hit one of the firefighters doing patient care to a citizen in this community, is just intolerable. Law enforcement moved in and took what actions that we had planned initially to assure that firefighter safety was a prime important factor. Let me also tell you that I had reports from law enforcement intelligence of dumpster fires attempting to be lit by the crowd. I don't have to tell you what graphic CNN or local evening news looks like when you see a civil disturbance with fires being lit. It's a synergy that continues to grow. Law enforcement moved in and arrested 3 individuals. I'm sure that detail will come out. What I want to share with you in closing is that because of, I think, the detailed planning, the intelligence gathering, the air support, and the swift actions of law enforcement, we had no fires, no destructive crowd or HMAC activity, no serious injuries to law enforcement or firefighters, and I leave you with a sincere appreciation for the excellent leadership that was provided by our law enforcement community. I'm proud to be working with them on a daily basis in the interest of public safety. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Alex Williams. I live at 232 South 5th East, Missoula, Montana. I went downtown on a Saturday night, early Sunday morning. We didn't get down there until about midnight because I was curious. On Friday in the Missoulian, on the front page of the Entertainer, there was a cover story on how to view the angels, touting the whole motorcycle mystique. I'd heard stories of lines of motorcycles lined up on the downtown streets of Missoula. Naturally, I was curious and wanted to go see what was going on for myself. Missoula is generally a quiet town, and we don't get a lot of excitement like this, and hopefully we won't get any excitement like this again. I didn't go down to protest. We walked around the streets, chatted with the bikers, chatted with the police officers. We're basically shocked at the amount of people downtown. It's a rare occurrence. Bobcat Grizzly game was about the only other time. And eventually, the police all left and left a large crowd of people in the streets. We're hoping things wouldn't get out of hand and hoping that the police would come back. And when the police came back, boy did they ever. We were shocked at what we saw. Police officers beating people who were walking away from them, shoving people in the back. And it was unacceptable to what we had been raised, me and my friends had been raised to believe in. And it was at that point that we decided to get involved and go over and express our disappointment in the police actions and disapproval in the police actions. We were standing on the curb. I was sprayed with pepper spray in the face. I was approached by an officer telling me that I was going to be the first one to be arrested when people started getting arrested. I told him I'd be there and I wouldn't resist. Shortly after, the police officers moved to the center of the intersection of Front and Higgins and formed what is called a skirmish line. At this point, we moved to the corner, staying on the sidewalk, and waited for the police to come, thinking that they would just arrest us peacefully. When they started moving towards us, we held out our hands like that and waited for them to come, showing no resistance at all. When they were about 6 to 8 feet from us, we were blasted with 2 canisters of pepper spray.
3 minutes.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, I'm Steve Lawrence. I live at 1600 Hayes Drive here in Missoula. I've been a Missoula resident for 30 years. I hope I have a perspective to offer. I wasn't here. Friday night, my wife and I had decided to cruise into town. This was Friday before the incidents. And we saw 2 motorcyclists go by, followed by 5 police units. That was 2 motorcycle cops and 3 cruisers. We thought, boy, this is pretty interesting. Let's spin around and follow this parade. And so we did. And at the federal building, some shrugging motorcyclists are pulled over. We saw a total of 5 police cruisers at that block across from the federal building, as another cruiser with its lights on pulled up and out got an officer with a K-9 unit. There are 2 motorcyclists on this block. There's going to be a lot of discussion in this inquiry concerning the definition of the word unreasonable. But my wife and I looked at each other and we thought, this is unreasonable. And we also felt provoked. There was a provocative display we felt, and one that made us angry. And I hadn't felt that kind of anger for years, and I thought, this is just not right. And I thought it's very important for us to go home right now, because I'm so angry that I'm going to wind up flipping these people off and really get in trouble. And so we did, and we left town Saturday morning. We said, this is not feeling good, something's going to happen. There's a tremendous buildup going on here. And to return Sunday night and read about what had happened. My point is that I want to ask everyone here not to focus on the events of the weekend. It's history, it happened, something blew up. But we do have a system in this community, a guidance system, which permits such an atmosphere to grow and for something to happen because of it. And this is my concern, that we look very carefully at what's going on. I think we have a good police force. And thank God, I think we have a good counterculture here. And this is what makes this community desirable to live in versus other places we could all choose in Montana. With that in mind, I just want us not to focus again on this isolated event, because it was a result of a week of build-up, other weeks of build-up. It went on for 3 or 4 weeks as this thing kind of came to a degree of energy that we really don't care to see around this community for whatever threat we ever imagined. It was a pretty poor example of what we're capable of. So let's look at our guidance system.
Before my time begins, I would like to make a quick comment, if I may. I've prepared my statement to be within 3 minutes, but as somebody personally involved in the incidents, I do feel that this is necessary for the community to hear, as well as the board. If I could ask for a few possible additional seconds, if needed. Hello, my name is Brielle Johnson. I live here in Missoula, and I have always felt safe to express my feelings about issues that affect me as a member of this community. I've been proud to live in a town that places such a high importance on community involvement. But in these last few weeks, I've been forced to reevaluate these feelings that I had previously taken for granted. I would like to first start out by explaining how it came to be that I am here speaking to you tonight. On Saturday, July 29th, I joined a group of citizens at the Missoula Police Station to voice our disapproval of the atmosphere of intimidation and hostility that had begun to permeate our city within the previous week, and also to show our concern at the possibly excessive police tactics employed the night before in downtown Missoula. I, for one, came with no intentions of confrontation, violent or otherwise. Some have argued that this may not have been the most effective way to voice our concerns, but I believe most involved simply wanted to show visually and publicly that what was taking place in our community was not reflective of the beliefs of all the people within that community. We began to walk down the block and up to Higgins as a group. At this time, police barricaded the intersection and pushed everyone up onto the sidewalks. There were people on bicycles that were then arrested for not complying, even though it is, in fact, illegal to ride your bike on the sidewalk. And so I ask you first, what sort of logic is involved in arresting someone for not doing something that is illegal? I personally view these first arrests as a turning point in relations between the police and the crowd. We had then just been exposed to a prime example of the very behavior with which we were so concerned. At this time, several people, including myself, began to question the police under what grounds these individuals had been arrested. It seems to us a clear violation of their rights. They replied not by addressing our questions, but instead by threatening to arrest us as well. The situation at this point became very chaotic. Police officers moved into the crowd, arresting whomever was closest, in my opinion, regardless of guilt or innocence. A nearby officer instructed me to return again to the sidewalk. I turned my back to do just that, and without so much as another word, was violently grabbed and lifted from behind, carried struggling across the intersection, slammed against a police car and handcuffed. I then stood witness to a number of other arrests, police grabbing signs out of protesters' hands and then swiping them through the crowd. Numerous citizens maced and tackled by groups of officers. The majority of arrests that I witnessed at this time were, in my opinion, excessive, unprovoked, and unnecessary. We were then loaded into vans and hauled to the I'm at 3 minutes.
I appreciate your thoughts, and don't forget that you can submit everything in writing, and the panel can review it, and also that they may be contacting you. But when we look down the side here, there are a lot of people who are patiently also waiting their time.
Thank you.
I'm Sandy Enslin. I've lived in Missoula all my life. We were also downtown, my husband and I, on our Road King, coming down the intersection when we were stopped with the barricades of the cops. They told us to stop since we couldn't go any farther. I proceeded to sit on the bike. My husband got off the bike, walked in front of it. An officer yelled at him, told him to get back on the sidewalk. He said he was not on the sidewalk. He said, "That's it, you're under arrest." He handcuffed him, threw him up against the cop car. We did get some bruises out of it. Hauled him out to the police station while I proceeded to sit on the bike in the intersection. I had to call somebody to come and get the bike because I can't ride the big bike. And I sat there for probably 45 minutes while the officers drove by, proceeded to cover their faces as they went by me. And I did ask one where they had taken my husband. His remark was, "Get some money and go out to the jail." Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Carol Hoyer, and I live at 5453 Prospect Drive in Missoula. My perspective on the early morning events of July 30th comes from driving through the area while listening to a scanner in my car. While riding down Higgins from Broadway towards the Front Street intersection at approximately 2:20 a.m., after the Hells Angels departed, I felt, saw, and heard an atmosphere of rebellion and defiance from a mostly youthful crowd. As we drove along the block from main to front, I was shown raised fists and given one-finger salutes from some of the alleged mellow crowd standing there. I had eye-to-eye contact. There was no mistaking who the gestures were directed at, although I was just riding through the area and did not provoke them. It's my opinion they were anti-establishment gestures, possibly extended to me because of my age. There may have been those who were just hanging out. However, the general atmosphere seemed to be rebellious, not mellow as claimed. I witnessed what I would consider illegal action at the intersection of Higgins and Front Street. At least I would have expected to be arrested had I been doing cartwheels diagonally across the intersection, body banging with another person in the intersection, challenging people trying to drive through the intersection, and just plain standing in the way of traffic of those who had the green light. Listening to the scanner, I heard officers who were watching the crowd. They were discussing what was happening and becoming increasingly concerned about the crowd getting out of hand. Some of the crowd were on the awning of the Mexican restaurant in the corner, others trying to climb the side of the buildings, and others challenging more drivers going through the intersection. A girl fell out of the pickup truck in the ambulance, having a hard time getting to her. At one point, an officer was told to stop the main agitator. When he attempted that, the young man ran away with officer in pursuit. The sound from the crowd was hair-raising and put fear in my heart for the officer. I felt he was in danger of being attacked by the crowd, but thankfully was quickly told to withdraw. As the chaos progressed, I heard orders for officers to return to their base so there could be a plan made about further handling the situation. It was a definite progression of escalating incidents. I could hear the growing concern from the police officers about safety for the people. Eventually, I heard an officer tell the crowd they were illegally assembling and to leave the area at least 3 times. A short time later, I could hear chaos from the crowd and comments from the officers that gave the impression these people were indeed not going to leave the area peaceably. Should there be a question about whether you can ignore law enforcement orders and just stay in an area when told to leave, even if you aren't directly involved in the fracas? Shouldn't you expect to receive the consequences of your actions, in this case the pepper spray if you do not comply, and in some cases get in the officers' faces, rather than do as directed? We keep hearing about rights. I think the population of Missoula has the right to expect law enforcement to protect them from this kind of action taking place in our city, and I believe the action they took was correct for the situation. This meeting was announced in Missoulian as Hells Angels meeting. I don't think it has anything to do with the Hells Angels.
Hello, my name is Ryan Rossing. I can be reached at P.O. Box 16702, Missoula 59808. I've been a member of this community for the last 6 years. Loved it from the minute I got here, and have always had really good encounters with the police officers. Numerous times bragged to people, friends visiting, and people out of state about how civil and human the police officers are here, and what a nice place it is to live. Much different than my native Texas, where I was, harassed numerous times due to my threatening appearance. But what concerns me most is the fact that a large number of people, well, a small number of people, I guess, demonstrated in front of the City Hall, which was considered a peaceful demonstration. That's quite different than what went on at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you'll hear plenty about that. But what I encountered was a demonstration which was met with force due to the fact it was a demonstration against the police officers. Allegedly, illegal activity occurred from the City Hall, which was walking down the streets without a permit to march, which, due to my understanding, is acquired at the police station. What I saw was people being beaten and thrown to the ground for a crime that appeared to be jaywalking, if it was a crime. So I have a hard time understanding how that kind of force was justified. I'd like people to realize that the first time the police officers showed up to address the crowd that was demonstrating, the first cop car that addressed the scene from the north end of Higgins pulled up to the crowd, and the police officer in the passenger car struck the nearest people with his car door maliciously and with intent. That has a lot to do with the way people reacted and, the consequential unrest that occurred. I'd just like that to be appreciated. Thank you.
My name is Mark Anderlich. I live at 1608 and a half Howell here in Missoula. I want to raise some concerns about police policy itself. To deploy a massive and highly visible police force in the face of the Angels to intimidate them into good behavior. What I find most disturbing is the apparent political design of the police intimidation policy. For me, it is not the late-night confrontations that reveal a troubling political design, but the police actions between 8 and 10 p.m. Saturday night. The police, using their Hells Angel-inspired strategy of intimidation, stopped that night's holy nonviolent march of citizens protesting the police actions of the night before. I saw the flyer inviting people to this demonstration before it began. While I did not participate in the demonstration, I noted the tone of the language used on the flyer. It was not inflammatory, but respectful, while clearly expressing a strong opinion. It represented well the tradition of nonviolence that I've tried to follow for 25 years, the tradition of Gandhi and King. As I have heard from several witnesses, the demonstration was peaceful and nonviolent. They were exercising their constitutional rights to free speech. When people refused to give up their rights, the police began to arrest demonstrators. At least 47 were arrested, far more than the 16 arrested in the brawl later that evening. What is normally and historically not an occasion for civil disobedience was turned into one when the police apparently decided to intimidate their critics. I emphasize apparently. I have participated in many marches in Missoula since 1976, most with parade permits, some without. Each time the Missoula police was very respectful of us, even when they clearly did not personally agree. Why the change in restraint by the Missoula police to nonviolent marchers? Sensible police work would dictate that the police monitor the demonstrators while they finished their march and allow it to disperse on its own, even with the Hells Angels in town. This is what Missoula police have done with great success for decades. What further troubled me was listening to Chief Lawrenson justify the police actions in his press conferences reported on KUFM. He said that through police intelligence works, the Missoula police discovered that some demonstrators have, quote, a wider agenda of civil disobedience. This thinly veiled implication was that a conspiracy of civil disobedience instigated and directed the violence that weekend. This outrageous and deliberate poisoning of the public comity could be seen as either a desperate attempt to deflect attention away from bad policing or a further example of a policy of police intimidation of political critics. Nonviolent civil disobedience deliberately or incidentally breaks laws, but is done peacefully and with respect for the well-being of others. Civil disobedience expect and prepare for arrest and imprisonment. The clear intent of civil disobedience is political, not criminal. There's a long history in the country of legal acknowledgement of that fact. When I began to hear reports from the Republican National Convention in Philadelphia later about nonviolent protesters gassed and beaten for no apparent reason, about the Philadelphia mayor slandering civil disobedience leaders, about police disruption of nonviolent and legal activities, I began to remember what happened in Seattle last fall. And when the Democratic National Convention happened in Los Angeles. Thank you.
My name is Chuck Irestone. I live at 412 East Spruce. In the media, I'm portrayed as a drunken rainbow reveler. I am also a taxpayer, Eagle Scout, and law-abiding citizen. I'm going to read an excerpt from a prepared statement I made. On Saturday evening, I decided to attend a peace rally about excessive police presence in our community. Then a spur-of-the-moment march ensued. I was riding on my bike with the protest. Upon reaching Higgins and Main, a police car cut off the protesters. The next thing I know, they started arresting the cyclist who was next to me. Then they arrested the person on their bike in front of me. I was then surrounded by arrests. An officer grabbed a hospitality, not hostility sign from a protester and started swinging it violently, hitting people. I saw them push down and pepper spray and arrest another citizen. They arrested citizens for crossing the street. I saw citizens get on the sidewalk and then a minute later be arrested. Were some citizens being targeted for arrest? Later that night, I went to observe and photograph the Hells Angels. After the last Hells Angel left, the police got in their cars and all left, totally vacating the area. That was odd to me not to leave some officers for public safety with hundreds of people in the street. Where was their concern for public safety? After a while, the crowd had dispersed and the rest moved towards Higgins Street. People moved in the intersections of Higgins and traffic was being slowed. All of a sudden, some people in a pickup truck sped through the intersection heading east on front. A woman grabbed onto the passenger side door and she fell, hitting her head on the asphalt. I noticed a police car in the alley of the Bond, car number 127. I said, "There's an injured woman in the street, aren't you going to help?" And all these would say that there's an ambulance on the way. I found out later I was one of many who approached the officers and they refused to act. The fire department came a couple minutes later. The crowd parted and gave access to the victim. The police and riot gear showed up. I was shoved from behind as I was stepping onto the sidewalk. I turned around and then was pepper sprayed. I wasn't given any dispersal notice at that time. Why was I shoved from behind and then sprayed? I'll never know. There was no dispersal.
There was a couple standing next to me, and they had been pepper sprayed and were quite upset. A towering officer in riot gear was pointing his finger at his chest and maybe poking him with it. He said something like, "If you don't disperse, you're going to be the first one I take." The young couple stood on the corner, were pepper sprayed, and then arrested. Later that night, I was walking my bike home, was cutting across the U.S. Bank parking lot at southeast corner of Spruce and Patty when I noticed 5 or 6 officers in riot gear and a couple of police cars in the street on the northeast corner. It looked like they were arresting some people. I thought, what is going on way over here in this quiet residential area? There was a citizen across the street on the southeast corner watching. He was arguing with the officers. I approached the citizen, and he was arguing that he had a right to watch from 100 feet away. They saw otherwise. They shined their flashlights on us and ordered us to disperse or be arrested. Why were they threatening us? We were not impeding pedestrian traffic. We were not being disorderly. They started coming towards us. We walked down the sidewalk to where we were in front of the U.S. Bank. That was not far enough. They ordered us to keep on going. Finally, an officer approached us. It was intimidating. Is he coming to arrest us or coming to communicate? The citizen said he had a right to watch from 100 feet. The officer said that law doesn't apply right now. That's safe we would watch from the corner, a whole city block away.
3 minutes, sir.
My name is Larry Ulaki, P.O. Box 206 in Milltown. I wasn't there that night, but I do have a scanner at home, and I was monitoring everything going on my scanner as my wife was in town praying and things that night. And a lot of the stuff's already been said, so what I've got written I'm going to change a little bit. But as far as the people that were arrested and sprayed with pepper spray and all the things that have been said, so far, I feel the people that were in the streets were wrong. With the police coming in, tell the people to leave. When they don't, they're breaking the law and they're subject to being arrested. They complain about how they were arrested. Well, being arrested isn't supposed to be a pleasant thing. It's not like going to the prom or something, it's because you're in trouble. And when an officer can't afford to assume that the people aren't going to resist or cause bodily harm. A lot of the officers that do get hurt on the job, they're hurt because of a routine traffic stop, or they're in a situation that they think is not going to be violent, and all of a sudden the person turns violent. They're standing there with their hands out, so they're taking it easy, and all of a sudden the guy turns violent. They don't know what to expect. They have to take the precautions. I can't believe that police are going to walk down the street and just start spraying pepper spray for no reason. We'd have to know our police officers better than that. I stand up for the law enforcement, and I think the decisions they made were good. These people talk about protesting. When I was growing up, you protested like during the day, not at 3 in the morning. This was a drunken mob just out looking for trouble. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Josh Ulaki. Thank you for allowing me the time to speak. Our mailing address is P.O. Box 206, Milltown, Montana, 59851. There are really 2 things I'd like to talk to you guys about. First thing is I want to tell you that I was illegally detained by the people at Front and Higgins. For about 15 to 20 minutes we were there of the morning of Sunday, July 30th at 3 in the morning. I felt very angry and threatened by all the people that were in the area and refused to let the car I was in move out of the area because of the time limits. I am not able to tell you more, but I do want you to know that I would be willing to testify before you at any time regarding what I saw and experienced. Second thing has to do with the statements made to the mayor and city council members on the night of August 7th by a woman, I believe her first name was Holly, who was sprayed with pepper spray on that Sunday morning. To my recollection, she stated that she was sprayed with MK46 and they only used MK1 for grizzly bears. The clear implication is that the higher the MK number, the greater the strength of the pepper spray used. Her statements confused me, and so I researched it and want to tell you what some of my findings. The pepper spray contents of any pepper spray canister used in this incident is 10% pepper. She stated the number used on grizzlies was MK1. There is no MK1. The smallest made is an MK3, which is right here. It holds 1.47 ounces of 10% of that is pepper, and then the other 90% is propellant. The MK number indicates the size of the canister, not the potency of the contents. After an officer carries, as part of his daily uniform, what is called OC-10. It is MK4. It contains 3 ounces of 10% pepper. There is a difference between the pepper spray used for bears, and that's the propellant in it is flammable. So if the pepper does not chase the bear away, you can use a match and use it basically as a flamethrower. The pepper spray used by officers does not have that propellant in it. It is made of nitrogen that is a non-carcinogen. So I want to say that one more time so everyone understands, MK3, 4, or even this 46, which they use that as station is part of their basic riot gear down here at my feet, indicates that the size of the canister, not the potency of the spray. They are all 10% pepper. I want to let you know something else as well. In order to be certified to carry OC spray, which every officer is and has to be certified, you must experience being sprayed with OC spray. These officers have experienced this.
3 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Gary Williams, 610 Simons Drive, Missoula. Born and raised in Montana, resided in Missoula since 1968. I'm a downtown business owner and real estate owner in the downtown. I would like from the commission and from our elected representatives only 3 things, and that is accountability, accountability, and accountability. And I was fortunate enough to hear some wonderful words on TV the other night, a movie called A Murder of Crows. And the final words in that movie were something to the effect, it's an immutable fact of life that the strong shall tread on the weak. But every now and again, there's a little bit of justice, and that's all we can hope for. So that's my position. I was not downtown, but I have taken the opportunity to review a number of videos, to read the newspaper personal accounts, and to talk to people and to attend meetings where people have talked about what happened to them. It's pretty obvious to me that there were instances of excessive use being employed against the crowd, and I would ask you to look closely at this characterization of the crowd: rainbow people, mob, enemy within. These are all very dangerous kinds of things with which to paint people. Just as we shouldn't paint the police as a brutal police force, but look at individual actions and tactics and hold the police force or individuals accountable for any of their actions. I'm not worried about the crowd. I believe they've been held accountable many times over for their actions. And I believe, to a very large extent, more than that which they should have been held accountable for. So I hope that you will work to protect the rights of perhaps a small group of people, but to show them respect. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jim Cofield. I live on Wyoming Street. I lived in Missoula for 15 years. I just want to start off with saying 3 words that I heard Chief Lawrenson say. The enemy within. I stand here in front of you today as a member of that newly formed group in Missoula, the enemy within. With those words, Chief Lawrenson drove a wedge between the citizens in this community and the police force. Those people in the community who I've heard referred to as the counterculture, or those who may believe in civil disobedience. It was an unfortunate choice of words. I spoke with Chief Lawrenson on the afternoon or the evening of Saturday, about 8 o'clock before the rally, and I asked him why my wife had been arrested, and he could provide me with no answer. He said the courts will decide whether she was right or she was wrong. And here, with our 3 minutes allotted, I, as a witness only to that Saturday evening rally that was labeled a protest, I will prove to be a witness for many people. What can I say? The enemy within. Many people here tonight have come in not being on the streets, listening to the spin of the police department of the city, as the media was duped into believing one person was arrested, or maybe it was 6 or 7. Weaving a story to twist the public's mind into believing what he believed to be true. Well, what did he say? He was out to dinner with no cellular phone turned on during the protest of that evening. Or, as some people would put, the orderly gathering of people to show their views to this community, what they felt about what happened. I encourage the committee here to listen to the stories of each and every person that was arrested. You can't hear it in 3 minutes. They can't tell you the whole story because they were never read their rights. Many of these people still do not have lawyers. Take a step. Look beyond what has been put in the media. Look beyond the 6 hours that the police have been allotted to tell you what has happened. Look beyond what the community that wasn't there, who want to say that the police are good and they did the right thing. I don't have anything against the police. I am not a person that says the police is something that should be put down. I have used the police services many times. Last night I did so. It is not that I don't support the police, but I do support a proper process.
Hi, my name is Flo Gardapi, and I too am a decent tax-paying citizen who had to move away from Missoula 3 years ago because I couldn't find a full-time job that would pay me enough to take care of my family. So I left and I took a full-time job working as a medical lab and x-ray tech. During that time, I decided I really missed Missoula. I missed the community, I missed the diversity and all the kinds of activities that are available to us here. There's a certain kind of spiritual vibration here in Missoula that we all know and love, and that makes this place very special. I missed that. My soul missed it, and I wanted to come back. I left my full-time job. I decided I wanted to come back and go to this great university, pursue further education, and go into another career. We moved back here back in June. And what I saw that weekend of July with my 10-year-old daughter standing out front counting helicopters because we couldn't sleep because they were flying over where we lived was unbelievable. What I heard was unbelievable. The outside law enforcement agencies that were allowed to invade our city and the actions that were taken by those law enforcement agencies created a disturbance in that spiritual vibration that is so precious to the city. And it threw everything out of balance. It threw a lot of people out of balance. Now, I don't know how it became in this town where it became a criminal offense to grow dreadlocks, wear rainbow tie-dye, or beat a bongo drum, as opposed to a leather-clad biker felon coming into town, walking around downtown with an open container, with police right there in front of you, not arresting you or anything like that. Chief Lawrenson said specifically he knew that certain Hells Angels were walking around with weapons that they could see visibly. Some probably had hidden weapons, and they decided not to do anything about it. He said he saw Hells Angels with open containers, but they decided not to do anything about it. Yet it was made a public statement that most of the arrests were for open containers, and no Hells Angels were arrested. Who were the real criminals here? What happened? I know that I'm going to raise my children in this town, and it's my hope and my prayer that the beautiful spiritual vibration of this town can be restored, that the harmony and the balance can be restored. I never again want to have to be up at 11, 12 o'clock at night with my 10-year-old daughter counting helicopters and explaining to her what the different helicopters are for and why they're here and why there's such a huge police presence in her town where I'm going to raise her. I never again want to see that in my town. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Frances Hamilton. I live at 325 Eddy here in Missoula, and I've been a resident for a long time. I wasn't downtown Friday or Saturday night. I heard from a friend of mine what was going on, and I found it awfully hard to believe. So I went to the meeting and watched the video. And I think that anyone has any concern about what happened should see the video and judge for themselves. One of the things that bothered me the most was seeing the news people taken out so that they could not cover the event. First it was the local cameraman, and then the woman with the CBS News camera who said to the police, "This is news, I have a right to be here." But that didn't make any difference. She was taken down too. And I think that tells you an awful lot about what was going on when we are not supposed to see. What I saw on that video is not the police department that I've been familiar with in Missoula. It simply was not. And I hope we can get to the bottom of the reason for that difference and get it straightened out so Missoula can feel comfortable again with their police department. Thank you.
I felt like I should have written things down. Some of us are taller. Thank you. My name is Laurel Ferreter. I live at 3758 East Side Highway, Stevensville, Montana. I happened to be in town Friday night and Saturday night visiting a girlfriend who came from out of town, and we decided to go out and go dancing. I felt like I should have written things down before I came, but I decided that I didn't need to do that because everything I saw that night is something I will never forget. I saw people being beaten just because they tried to cross the street. I saw policemen wading into a crowd and telling people to disperse, but if you weren't right next to the policeman, you couldn't hear him, and two people down, they were grabbing people that didn't even know they were supposed to leave. When the police left on Friday night, the crowd settled down and went away. But then I found out on Saturday night that they had decided not to let them congregate on Front Street. And when I heard that they weren't going to let them congregate right on Front Street, I realized that they were going to push that crowd right out into Higgins Avenue, right there at the foot of the bridge. And I heard that while I was still in Stevensville. I talked to another friend down there. I said, "What are they doing? Don't they realize those people are going to go right out into Higgins Avenue? It's almost like they want that to happen." The only reason the people were down there was because this was hyped up. The Hells Angels were coming to town. I really hate to be the one to break the news, but the Hells Angels have been here before. They come through here all the time. So do a lot of other people. The Rainbow family comes through here every year too, you know? But this year, because they were going to have big gatherings here, they decided to make a big deal out of it. And then it was in all of the media. So a lot of people showed up just to be down there. They wouldn't even have been there if there hadn't have been an overreaction. Everybody was curious. Every time you saw a motorcycle, there were 5 police vehicles behind it. You know, words like ludicrous, overkill came to mind. And you could feel the tension in town building up. That's why the people were there. They didn't like to see what was happening. It didn't feel right. It wasn't their hometown anymore, and it wasn't the proper way to handle it. You could have had small amounts of people, even undercover people, watching these folks if you wanted to keep things under control, and everything would have been fine. It was like this was purposely staged to have something big happen. When the woman fell down from the vehicle and she got hurt, it was the crowd that came to her assistance. It was the crowd that was there holding her in place, making sure that she didn't move her head, waiting for the emergency vehicle to come. And it took more than a few minutes for it to come. I'm a trained medical personnel. I used to work respiratory therapy right here in this town. And I was standing there going, what's taking so long? Well, I found out they had to turn out and run. Thank you.
Good evening, Jeremy O'Day, 2853 Washburn. I've been living in Missoula for just over 5 years. Until recently, I've had reasonable experiences with the police department. I can't say the same about their recent activities. We've all seen the footage, videos, we all know what happened. The police are no longer someone who I feel like I can go up and come to with my problems and trust. I have no trust after witnessing what I've witnessed, not only on the Hells Angels night, but just recent activity in general. I had a conversation with an officer from Utah. I was there Saturday night, I was a witness. Felt bad for him. He was a pretty nice guy, and he explained that he was there because we wanted him there. I don't feel like I was fairly represented. I do not want more officers in this town. If I wanted to move to a police state, I'd go to Texas or Utah. That's all. Thank you.
My name is Jan Jacobson. I live at 107 South 3rd West. I'm fourth generation Montanan, lived in Missoula for the last 27 years. I'm also a Rainbow family, have been for 20 years. First time I met a Hells Angel, I gave him a kiss on the cheek at the 1980 West Virginia gathering where we were being shot at by the locals. So I was still afraid when the Angels came. I work at the Top Hat, I was right in the middle of the whole thing. I saw people being mean, being cruel. In fact, I looked at an Angel at one point and said, you know, you guys are the only people with any civility in this downtown. Cops, customers, anyone. I was hit later that night when I walked down the corner to see what was going on. Found out the girl had fallen off a pickup truck and been hurt. Turned around to walk back. Walked into a line of SWAT officers. While I was getting thumped in the chest with the car, trying to explain to them, I just want to go back down to where I work. I was going to pick up the sidewalk on my way back. I was hit from behind by another Utah officer from St. George. And being a smart ex-demonstrator, I got out of there. I saw both riots go, and I got out of there before I got arrested because I knew there was no rationality going on. I wanted to look at 3 questions as you investigate this. Thursday and Friday night, why are the police attacking people so vividly with cameras, trying to get their cameras out? What went on that they didn't want to be seen? Second question, the 8:30 riot on Saturday. Why were they pulling longtime activists out of the crowd, off the sidewalk, who had done nothing? Do they have a counterintelligence program? Were they practicing for future riots? And number 3, as the cops left Saturday night, or early Sunday morning, somebody, with all this police presence, somebody had managed to tag with graffiti several of those cop cars from Utah. I want you to look at those cop cars that were tagged and the 3 organizations from Utah that were involved in the 3 o'clock riot. I think you will find a correlation. Thank you.
My name is Emily Hoffman. I live at 935 Warden, apartment number 3. First of all, I want to say that I am not a bongo beating whatever, and I'm not a criminal, but yet I was arrested. Why? For walking across the street. I was walking across the street, and I was suddenly surrounded by cops and arrested in handcuffs very tightly. My wrists were sore for days after that, for making loud noises and disturbing the peace. Well, I think the ones who were disturbing the peace were the cops. And another thing, my friend's dad is a trucker, and he was listening to his scanner this night, and he overheard two cops talking, and they were talking about someone that they had arrested, and one cop said that they were saying, "Please don't pepper spray me, Mr. Officer." And the other cop said, "I love the smell of pepper spray. It smells like victory." Is that really the kind of people we want protecting and serving us? I think not.
My name is Gerard Bowes. I live at 203 Sawmill Gulch, Alberton. And I want to thank everybody on this committee for, there's a lot of people here right now. And thanks for giving us a chance to give our side or our opinion about this whole matter. And as far as I don't have a prepared statement, I came here basically just to listen to what everybody else has to say. And from the little bits and pieces from the newspapers and whatnot that I've accumulated, I want to hear, actual personal, experiences that people have had. And I think this is bold. And as far as, I don't think there's a black and white on this issue. And I think people in this community are making this black and white. As far as, I've seen the videotapes and I've read the comments, and there was wrongdoing on both the protester side and on the policemen's, as far as treatment of people around this community, not just on Saturday and on Sunday, early Sunday morning, but even before that on Thursday. One of my coworkers was pulled over for a minor traffic violation, taken out of his vehicle, put face down on a hot pavement. It was probably 90 degrees, and had his vehicle gone through. He got pulled over for a minor violation, and there was no need for that type of treatment. And like I say, as far as I've always supported policemen in this community as far as all law enforcement. I'm not biased against them. I know they've got a job to do. But I think people in this community, I think everybody right now, you need to look at the people next to you. And instead of all these little hatreds coming out, like as far as I've heard, limp-wristed liberal, drunk, hooligan, rainbow people, and all these different generalizations people have made. You need to look at these people, then look at yourself, and do you know these people? And I think as far as people need to make an educated guess and not just take one side or another, not make this whole issue political, either one side or the other. You need to make an educated guess as far as it was a really easy thing for me to admit that people, as far as on the protester side, they made mistakes and they broke the law, and some of them did some things that were out of line, but the policemen were out of line too. And I think in order to keep this community healthy, as far as keep it diverse, and as far as all the love that people have in this community for one another, this needs to be put behind all of us, and we all need to say, mistakes were made, and don't just take sides one way or another. I think we need an apology from the police chief. Some of these people have already been held accountable. He needs to be held accountable by saying, my officers were out of line, and I know this, and mistakes were made. And in order for this community to heal, we need to there need to be some sort of reparation. As far as I think the police chief needs to come forward and say, after reviewing all the evidence. 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dave Argero. I live on Poplar. I've been a resident for 10 years. I'd first like to thank the city for opening this process, and my comments come from bearing witness throughout the entire week. Much has been said about actual incidents, and my objective here is to question the process and the base of the decisions at the root of these issues. I understand that under the circumstances, pressures, constraints, I believe the city undertook a very difficult situation, and I respect the chief and the city for developing policies, infrastructure, and strategy that they believed were in the best interests of all sides. However, based on many actual incidents and review of the decisions and policies, it is clear that there were transgressions by and to all sides. While it is the constitutional right of the public to freedom of expression, that expression should be respectful by all parties. The public needs to be respectful, as well as the law enforcement. And it is clear that this respect was violated by both sides, but the issue here is that law enforcement disrespected the public they are meant to serve. Rights were abused by the law enforcement on many levels, including constitutional, civil, and ethical. And while autonomous decisions are mandatory for site-specific field situations, we witnessed fear-based reactionary actions. And decisions that the policies were based on were also boundaries that were set by fear and reactionary decisions by the city before Saturday and Friday night. There was an escalation of aggression by both sides, but it began with a provocation and antagonism by law enforcement prior to the weekend. That was very clear, and tonight is bearing witness to that. There are significant breakdowns, and the policies that were created were from fear and intimidation. This was truly the enemy within. This is not professional, nor does it support the most basic tenets of our society. It was far more akin to totalitarianism and abusive actions by law enforcement. Decisions were focused on the weaker target, the public, while allowing the angels relative freedom in order to avoid conflict. And I appreciate that, but it was misdirected. The public was not informed by the city, and there was no opportunity for dialogue prior to or during the incident, which was a significant breakdown. There was also use of less experienced personnel, which caused several problems and rights violations. And there was a misappropriation of authority and radical reactionary actions and abuse of constitutional civil rights that the authority and the law enforcement were subject to. This was all based on fear, and therefore I request a strong and careful analysis and full accountability of the original policy strategy based on fear. That was the true enemy. Thank you.
My name is Teresa Wyndham, and I'm a citizen of Missoula. On Saturday, July 29th, around 8:30, I witnessed a protest on Higgins Avenue and Main Street. My husband, my 11-year-old son, and I had just came from dinner, turning south onto Higgins from Broadway. One police car was in front of us and another behind us. As we approached the corner of Higgins and Main, the protesters came off of the sidewalk into the street towards the police officers. As the officers stepped out of their cars, protesters chanting, "Shame on you," and "Go home," approached them. Additional officers arrived throughout the protest. Police officers told the protesters numerous times to back up and get back on the sidewalk. Protesters had plenty of chances to cooperate with the police. Protesters were yelling and pointing fingers in the faces of police officers. After getting no cooperation from the protesters, some of the protesters were sprayed with pepper spray while resisting arrest. Other protesters were happy to be arrested, smiling while they were being cuffed, and walked back to police cars. I did not see one police officer act inappropriately. In fact, I saw officers wiping faces of protesters that had been sprayed with pepper spray, trying to get it off of their faces and out of their eyes, also adjusting handcuffs that may have been tightened a little too tight. Protesters were given ample opportunity to walk away before being arrested or sprayed with pepper spray. The whole scene could have been avoided had protesters gotten back on the sidewalk and walked away. They were taunting the police officers. The police officers were not out of line, but were merely doing their job, one of which is to protect the community, of which I am very appreciative. It is a shame that officers have to go through this when all they were doing is looking out for the best interests of Missoula citizens. I firsthand witnessed this event and again saw not one single officer act inappropriately. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Earl Allen. I live out in Tura, just east of town. I work at the Noons on the corner of Broadway and Madison. I did a pretty stupid thing Saturday night and early Sunday morning. I hung out downtown, and I wasn't arrested. And I watched a lot of things that I never thought I'd ever see in Missoula. And quite frankly, I saw a lot of people abuse their freedom of speech. They were asked nicely. The incidents I saw, I know I'm a graduate of the journalism school here. I know there are a lot of different facets to the story, and I know there are a lot of different sides. But the parts that I saw were the police giving the benefit of the doubt. And the fact that people were warned 2, maybe 3 times before they were arrested. I ended up on the ledge at the First Interstate Bank building. I watched the girl fall off the truck. I thought she very well died right in front of my eyes. And if I have to fault the Missoula Police Department or the law enforcement community for anything that happened that night, is that they weren't clearing that crowd soon enough. It was just when the bikers left, the cops left. And there were a lot of irresponsible people down there. There were a lot of people who were drunk. There were a lot of people who were just mouthing off. There were a lot of people who just wanted to party. And I think that the whole mix of the thing, it was ridiculous. Not to mention the fact that it looked like a circus earlier in the evening. People with their kids walking around downtown. I mean, you know, I can compare it to rubbernecking a traffic accident, just to see something that was so unusual and so weird. And it was a dangerous situation. I watched people argue with cops because the cops asked them to cross the street at the end of the block so as they wouldn't go into traffic or go across the street and perhaps knock over one of the Hells Angels bikes. And knowing what I know about motorcycle culture, knocking over bikes is a pretty serious thing for somebody to do. I watched cops explain that they were trying to protect people's safety, and people decided that that was a point for debate. And I thought that was ridiculous. There were a lot of stupid people out there, myself included. I probably shouldn't have been down there, but I wanted to see for myself, to see if there was any abuse going on. I thank the officers for not allowing any serious crimes to happen to any of the citizens of this community. And I think that it's a sad day. This stinks all the way around. It's a sad day for Missoula because we've lost that much more of our innocence.
My name is Annie Gard. I live at 329 South 4th West. The aggressive approach to police protection and crime prevention during the weekend of July 26th to the 29th unfortunately made the police force, rather than the Hells Angels, the greatest disturbers of the peace. With helicopters roaring over my head day and night, I felt invaded, helpless, and angry. These are emotions felt by crime victims, not by safe citizens. To me, the purpose of police protection is to make citizens feel secure and comfortable. Secure enough to, say, sleep outside on their porches when the temperature in their homes is over 90 degrees. Not possible that weekend. Because of the tactics used by the police, not because of the Hells Angels. A miserably hot weekend was made even more miserable with the addition of helicopters and the tension our police protection produced. I am not surprised that trouble erupted that Saturday night. I myself could barely endure the protection from Wednesday night on. By 2 a.m. Saturday night, unaware of the excitement about to occur downtown, I was sitting in my living room gritting my teeth as the helicopters kept roaring by. I wasn't sure I could last until morning without screaming or maybe breaking a window. I settled for dialing 911 and taking out my ire on the poor operator. I was one of the many calls that the command central probably had to wire through, and I suspect there were a lot more like me. I also penned a note to Police Chief Lawrenson, considerably less polite than this one. Folks downtown responded differently, but the cause, I think, was the same. Tension created by police, not by visitors from Seattle or the Hells Angels. Monday, everything was back to normal. I don't have a big problem with Missoula's police force. I think they do a fine job. I just hope the next time they perceive a serious threat to our city, they'll be able to think of a less hostile way of dealing with it, a way that doesn't victimize the people they're trying to protect. I thank them for their concern. I don't even question their motives, only their methods. Thank you.
Uniformed police officers walked through my watering hole, Charlie B's downtown, on Wednesday the 26th. 8 of them in a line, not smiling, looking very intimidating. I felt very intimidated. Yeah, my heart started racing like it is right now. And the comments around me were pretty upsetting comments. And as the week grew on, of course, I followed what was going on. I hung out downtown since I worked down there. And also, I ride Harley-Davidsons. I used to work at the Harley-Davidson dealership. I've been to Sturgis. As a matter of fact, the only other time in my life that I felt so upset, like I felt upset that Sunday morning downtown, was when I was attending the Sturgis motorcycle rally last year with my friend Abe Abramson. We ended up going to Hewlett, Wyoming, because in Hewlett they have panty-free Wednesdays, where women walk through the streets with their chaps on and no panties, and they flash their bosoms for everyone. And it's quite a crowd that gathers for this. And while I was there, I didn't see any police officers in the streets. There's a 4-block radius, thousands of motorcycles, thousands of people, no water, no food was available, and no police officers. My gut just churned. My head started aching, my heart throbbed, my whole body, my instinct told me this is riotous, this is wrong, we have to get out of here. So we left. Now on Sunday morning, the 30th, July 30th, I felt that same feeling downtown, watching everything as a witness, a holistic perspective I used to watch the tactics, the maneuvers the police were using. It was very interesting. I couldn't understand why did the police pull out? It was very impressive, however, that they pulled out after several of the Hells Angels left. There were about 6 Hells Angels members still left downtown. Then within 5 minutes, without a word, the police took off. They left. It was, like I said, very impressive. They were gone. And that just left the crowd to stand on the streets and kind of disintegrate and boil, and that's when the police came with the riot gears and pepper sprayed everyone.
My name is Rich Boberg. I'm the general manager of the Bon Marché. I have 2 points that I want to make, or comment on 2 points. I watched with a great deal of interest Chief Lawrenson's preparations for the Hells Angels Week, followed it very closely, and I took his lead as well, and I requested additional loss prevention officers to be in my store during that week for the safety of my employees and the customers, and for the safety of my building. During that week of the Hells Angels visit, I was actually feeling very safe and secure with the helicopters, with the additional police force. That was my personal opinion. I also felt more secure with the additional loss prevention in the store, which brings me to the second point. I had loss prevention officers in my building. They're Bon Marché employees from other locations in the Bon, and they were all in my store 24 hours a day in shifts, but they're all in the store that night of July 29th and the 30th. And they were outside and they observed everything that happened, and they all reported back to me that our police department behaved themselves. They were very restrained, they were professional, they were courteous, and we do actually have a police department that we can be proud of. And they were a little disturbed of all the incidents that have happened ever since. So I just would like to say that I'm very happy with everything that went into the beginnings and then everything that happened towards the end of this entire situation. Thank you.
My name is Alyssa English, and I'm a Missoula citizen. I want to start off by saying that I've never had a problem with Missoula police. I've always felt that there is a mutual respect between us, and I've always been treated human, not as a miscreant, until Saturday at the 8 o'clock protest. I wasn't a part of the riot that happened Sunday morning, only the protest, and the incident that I would wish to speak about was when I was crossing the street. I was holding a sign, and an officer jumped at me out of nowhere, ripped the sign out of my hands, and began thrashing it around. And I was scared. I was very scared. I didn't feel I had done anything to deserve that. I was walking across the street. The police, I think, used excessive force, and I think that there are way too many here for what is needed. I feel that my rights were violated, and I feel that your rights were violated. And that's what matters. That's the issue here, because that's all we have as citizens of this country is our rights, and without that, we have nothing else. And that's what frightens me more than anything else, and I think that we need to fight for that. Thank you.
My name is Brooke Cody. I live at 12190 O'Keefe Creek Boulevard. I'm 27 years old and have lived in Missoula 17 years of my life. I'm a young mother, and I have to say that the weekend and the whole week that the Hells Angels were here, I never felt safer in my life. I appreciated the fact that I could take my children out during the day on the park walks where there is normally problems and feel safe. I felt like the police did an excellent job to make me secure with my life and what I wanted to do. I don't feel that my rights were offended, but I do feel that if I had done something wrong, I'd like to take the blame for it. I try to instill in my children to understand that you have to take the blame for what you've done. And I think that there's a lot of blame shifting. Everybody wants to point fingers, but we need to really investigate whose fault this was.
Hello, my name is Mike McGovern. I live at 1118 Cooper Street. I've been a resident of Missoula since 1979. I own a home and run a small painting business. And I guess I'd just like to thank everybody for trying to work this out. I wrote down some comments that I hope you'll all read. They've kind of shaped my opinion about the police force here. I agree with a lot of people that have said, I've over the years said how good I think Missoula Police Department, has treated me. But slowly over the years I've seen an erosion, and it's everywhere. It's in government. It's with farmers market. Oh, we don't want, your group here. We want to leave it as it is, status quo. And I think a lot of that anger that the protesters exhibited came right from the very beginning with Chief Lorenzen telling the Hells Angels, we don't want you to come here. And we all need to start to accept and respect each other. That's the only way that's going to heal. First we didn't want the Rainbow People to come this summer, then it was the Hells Angels, and now maybe we have fires as kind of a awakening to shape up. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Penelope Vaquero. I'm from Colombia. I've been living here in this country, in this town, for 6 months. First of all, I would like to say that I think there's some sort of laziness in the government and the armed forces of this country to learn and accept difference and learn how to handle situations where they have to protect a community from a crowd that is very different from their own family styles, or I think you know what I mean. And I was arrested there at the 8 o'clock riot or rally. Me and my family were downtown when the rally was about to end. They were walking on Higgins, and we were riding our bikes. When we were asked to move back, we couldn't get on the sidewalk. We were riding our bicycles, so we decided to go in the bike lane. We were actually on the right lane, but after we were asked, we went on the bike lane. And then the second time they stopped, the police car stopped. My friend, he was like one of the first persons on the march. Because we were riding, we didn't intend to be the first ones or anything, and he wanted to pass the police car, and he got taken from the back out of his bike. His bike was on the floor, and I was way far, and I heard people screaming, "Shame on you, shame on you." He was the first person arrested. So me and my husband turned back. My husband started to ask the police officer, "What are you going to do with this bicycle? That bicycle is mine. Where are you going to take it?" And the police officer didn't answer. He just said, "If you don't want to be arrested, please go away." And he said, "I will go away when you tell me what they're going to do with my bicycle." So they took my husband, handcuffed him too, his bicycle on the floor, now 2 bicycles on the floor, and they were not going to do anything about it. Actually, they didn't. I was hysterical at that point. I was really nervous that they were taking my husband. From where I come from my reality, they can take people and maybe you will never see them again. That's my own reality. That's why I was hysterical. I was pulling his hand. I was saying, "You're not taking him, you're not taking him." And they took me to my bicycle on the floor, 3 cups. Excuse me if that word's not proper. 3 police officers took me, 3. And as I turned back to say, "What are you going to do with my bicycles?" Nobody answered. A stranger, very kind person. 3 minutes?
3 minutes are up.
Excuse me?
3 minutes are up.
Oh, okay. Well, I need to say one more thing. One more thing, please. One more thing. When we were at the jail, they asked me if my INS number, my social security number, I didn't have it. So they said, "Okay, you have to go to jail until the INS people come to talk to you." So they put me in jail for like 10 minutes, and then when they took me out, because supposedly the INS officer was there, the INS officer had been there all the time, but they put me in jail, so I don't know what that meant. Thank you.
Hello. I'm glad to be here, and I appreciate you taking the time to take these comments. I'm Michael G. Perez, 4116 South Reserve. You know, what I don't understand is what happened, why wasn't the police force downtown when the Hells Angels and the locals got into it? And there were a lot of fights and a lot of confrontations, and there were problems on the south side of Missoula. There were a lot of things happening, people going to the hospital. Where was the police at? Yes, that's a metaphor. That's a metaphor, because that is what would have happened if we didn't have the police. My wife and I were downtown, southeast corner that night. I'm a disabled guy. I was there Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. I get tired of hearing people saying their rights were violated, wrongly arrested, extreme use of force, the helicopters in the sky, provocation of the police. I get tired of that. I get tired of saying, well, everybody's pointing their finger to each other. I think it's about time if these people all would accept responsibility. Both sides. Not only one side, but both sides. But especially the ones that are blaming the police for this and that. I'm tired of that. And no, Mr. McGrath, Alderman too, I'm not fearful of the police. There are a lot of people in Missoula that are not fearful of the police. We're happy to have them. And I hope to God you guys will understand when you review all this blame that the police are here to do the job. That flag up there symbolizes what this nation's all about. The choice was theirs. The choice was theirs. They could have left. They had the warnings. I don't cry for them. 2 minutes. Thank you.
All right. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm Sue Gregerson, and I live here in Missoula. And I was unjustly arrested on Friday night. I chatted with you guys for 3 whole minutes about it. The event changed my life. 3 minutes isn't enough. So if you want to talk to me, give me a holler. I'm in the phone book. I'd be more than happy to talk to you about my arrest. I would just like to remind the community and for the committee yourself that the divisive, we've got to stop the us and them. We need to look at it as we, how we can heal the Missoula community and come together and how we can make Missoula a better community. If I make a mistake or my daughter makes a mistake, we should admit it. If we did something really right, we should get a pat on the back. So we've got to stop this back and forth, pro and con, and just really delve into what happened and help the community walk forward. The one thing that I would like for you guys to look at as you're investigating all this is the decision-making process that the city of Missoula has for pulling out chemical weapons against its own citizens. Because, damn, I'm right with you. If the Hells Angels were rioting, yeah, it was a good call to pull out riot gear and chemical weapons. But it's been said over and over and over again that it was a known fact that only the citizens of Missoula were standing there on the street corner and they were unarmed. And I don't know how that protocol happens, but I'd like to make sure that I know for a fact that in this Missoula community, what our situations are when it is appropriate to pull out chemicals and use them on unarmed citizens, because I think there's a time and a place for everything. And so thank you guys for having the public hearing, and you guys are all donating your time, and that rocks. So thanks a bunch for helping out with this, and give me a call if you want to talk.
My name is Linda Eakin, and I live in Polson, Montana. I was on my way to Missoula on Friday the 28th when I was pulled over by the Highway Patrol informing me that I had a headlight out. And he gave me a warning and said to go ahead and go down to Missoula, that there wouldn't be a problem, that if I got pulled over I could just show them the warning. I left Missoula at about 1:20 in the morning, which would be Saturday morning, and I proceeded to go on the on-ramp of the Orange County or Orange Street. And there were 4 sheriff cars sitting there with no lights on. 2 of the officers were standing outside their car. As I got on the on-ramp, they pulled me over, and I showed them the warning, because he said, "Do you know you have a headlight out?" I told him that I'd already been pulled over. He had run my license and everything, and I proceeded to sit there for about an hour, when finally they told me that there was a warrant out for my arrest, and did I have $500? And I said, "No, I don't." And they said, "Well, I guess you're going to jail." When I got out of my car, there were 7 sheriff cars, 14 sheriff deputies, and I was handcuffed and stood out along the side of the road. Finally, I was taken in, and the 2 that took me in proceeded to complain because there was an outbreak or a disturbance at the Stockmans, and they were not able to go because a van had not come by to get me. When I was taken to the jail, I was put in a cell with 4 other women. One had bruised wrists, and they refused medical attention for her. Another one was on her period. They refused hand packs for her. Another girl that was Native American asked for toilet paper, and she was thrown into maximum security. I finally was released about 6 o'clock. They did not give me my driver's license back. They would not tell me where my car had been towed. I had to call around, and finally when I did find my car, my driver's license and the warning from the highway patrolman were sitting in the driver's seat or the passenger seat with the window rolled down. I saw overreaction by the police. I did not see a lot of people on the street, and I just am not very happy about any of this. Thank you.
I am Citizen Meese, an enemy within. I was arrested at 6 o'clock at the non-drunk rally. I've lived in Missoula off and on for over 20 years now, and the Missoula police force has always impressed the hell out of me. They're great people. They go out of their way. They are the kind of people that would get a cat out of your tree or something. But that was all thrown out the window the other night, and I'm a little embarrassed that it has happened. We don't need to point fingers, and we don't need to have all this enemy rhetoric and jargon, because we are a community, and to fix a problem we have to come together as a community. But I don't think it's a policeman's objective to have an opinion or to have enemies within the community. I think that a policeman is sworn into oath to represent the people equally, to represent the people unbiasedly. And for our chief of police to use the words enemy and admit that he has enemies within this own community, that kind of scares me. I witnessed a lot of stuff. Police are trained to deal with riotous situations. They're trained to deal with all this type of things. And when I watched the video, which you've heard time and time again, I emphasize that you all take the time to watch these videos. A police officer grabbing a sign from someone and banging people over the head, that's not part of police training. That's not part of police procedure. We do need to review this. And granted, there were people that were drunk and out of control, and no one is in the super right in this situation. But we don't need chemical weapons in this town. We don't need excessive, brutal behavior by both the citizens and the police. And I thank you for volunteering your time to look at this, because it is rather important, and it's up to us as a community to heal this. Thank you for your time.
My name is Christoph Olsen. The intent of the rally was not anti-police, but it was instead intended to express discontent at the policies being implemented. The planning for the Hells Angels Task Force seemed police-oriented and created a social imbalance which affected how the Missoula public reacted to the presence of armed police commandeering control of their city. A recent court case in Canada, as reported in the Missoulian, concluded that police in Canada were guilty of harassment and of denying the Hells Angels their civil rights in 1977. Did this happen in Missoula as well in the year 2000? Do you feel that comfortable with paramilitary forces entering the public domain and practicing at will their control and riot techniques? Chief Lawrenson was quoted in the Missoulian that we were prepared for the Hells Angels but didn't anticipate the enemy within. Do statements like this help to develop citizens' trust in their police force? In summary, I think we need to approach our problems with a more holistic attitude toward conflict prevention and resolution. If we allow the only liaison to be the police, then we will eventually lose the civilian control of our society. To quote a popular saying, if all you have are hammers, then all you will see are nails. Again, it is how we approach things that is responsible for the ensuing response. I feel that if the law enforcement had shown a friendlier presence and a less aggressive face, everyone could have enjoyed this unique social experience, which is what seemed like everybody wanted by the large crowd of everyday citizens that were out that weekend. By the way, pepper spray has been related to over 100 deaths around this country. The questions I have for the task force are, the videotapes that I've seen reveal that the protester did not hit the policeman on the nose, but that maybe the officers hit the protesters with the sign. I question the use of helicopters, especially flying with their lights off. Is that an FAA violation? Is it proper to transport arrestees in a van without seatbelt protection? And is the first response to an unlawful act to strike a banner carrier with the police car door? Thank you. I want to submit the original flyer that called the rally together.
Hi, my name is Justin Lawrence. My personal information is on a card over there. I'm not going to broadcast it to everybody. I come from a family of law enforcement. My uncles were police officers. My grandfather was the county attorney for Ravalli County for a number of years. And at the age of 18, I sent a cop killer to death row in Texas for killing an officer. I've never had a problem with the police, and hopefully if I can make it past this, maybe I won't again. I was downtown filming an amateur movie with some friends. After the Hells Angels and the police left, I was wandering around the crowd, interviewing people that were involved in the movie or getting more interesting footage. There was a lot of action going on. I became involved when I saw the girl getting into the truck and the crowd of people climbing into the back of the truck, them speeding across, and her falling off. I filmed the entire thing and was naturally curious, rubbernecking, whatever. I ran over, witnessed tons of people rendering aid, clearing the crowd away, trying to get 911, and it took an extremely long time for any help to arrive. When it did, it arrived with armed support, full riot gear. At the time, nobody had ever said anything. I never heard anyone saying anything about leaving or being dispersed or, an illegal gathering of people. I continued to wander around through the crosswalks and intersections and, just filming as I went. I witnessed a KPAX cameraman who was being pushed away from the scene and then panned around to see police everywhere. Meantime, a helicopter is flying overhead, giving the first verbal orders I heard the entire evening to disperse, with no direction whatsoever by anyone on the ground. No one knew where to go. When you're surrounded by police in every direction, you kind of panic. I was starting to get kind of panicky. People were gathering behind me because I had a video camera. I followed the KPAX cameraman out into the crosswalk in an effort to leave, trying to go towards my car. He made it through. I didn't. I was beaten down with a nightstick, spun around by another officer in riot gear, and maced by another officer who said, "Here, take some of this." Meanwhile, I'm holding my glasses that were knocked off me in one hand and a video camera in the other to protect my investment. And it's ridiculous.
Good evening to you all. Thank you for the opportunity to engage you all. My name is James Roof. I live at 1107 Poplar Street, up the Rattlesnake. I just moved back from Europe, where I was the senior director of Greenpeace International and all of our ships and all of the nonviolent protests that we do. I also started coming to Missoula in 1995 to found an organization called the Ruckus Society, which teaches people nonviolent civil disobedience and does it and tries to teach people how to do it constructively and peacefully. I'm presently the board chair of that organization, and one of our fellows was just nailed in Philadelphia and was asked to post $1 million bond to get him out, basically to get him off the streets. And he wasn't doing anything. He wasn't even part of the protests. He was there visiting his family. He's from Philadelphia. I left the weekend to go to the Olympic Peninsula to get out of the fires and sit in the rainforest, because what I saw in Missoula was escalating, not de-escalating. But I want to say this. I support Pete Lawrenson and the job that he's done as police chief in this city. I think the whole town freaked out. I think, yes, there are questions of the police department. Yes, there are questions of the city government. But the question really is to every citizen of this county and the city, what kind of Missoula we want to live in. A gentleman here asked for constructive and that we all listen to each other. The first tenet of nonviolent civil disobedience is that you listen, because that's where communication begins. I've dealt with a lot of police in my day, military officials, and they've always been just normal people trying to do their job, and I understood that. And I support them for trying to do their job, because sometimes they have to deal with people like me. And I try to be as respectful and just make it clear why I'm there. But I think, I came back to Missoula and I'd never really been involved in politics before, or even voting. We all have, really the question is for everybody in this room, not just the police, not just the city, but every citizen of this town. Do you vote? Do you get involved? And I'm proud to be here with all these people that are here tonight that are coming to be involved in their community. Whether I disagree with them or not, I will listen to them. I will hear what they have to say, because that is the only way we get the good stuff, is the hard debate. And what's happening to Missoula right now you can view as a tragedy, but the greater the tragedy, the greater the opportunity is for us. And Missoula and Montana are growing, and we have great challenges ahead, but view that as an opportunity and what we can do, and don't be scared of it. And I'm proud to say now that I live in Missoula, Montana, and that I live in Montana, and I will fight for this place to be like we all dream it should be, but the only way to do that is to get involved, participate, don't complain, be constructive. Thank you.
Right on, JR. Way to say it like it is, my man. My name is Brian Toohey. I came to Missoula 2 years ago. I'm an organic farmer up in St. Ignatius right now and just graduated from the university. When I first came here, a lot of folks from out of state used to ask me, so what's Missoula all about? To which I would reply, there's a lot of white people in Missoula. But amongst all those white people, you got your gays, your hippies, your yuppies, your students, and your environmentalists. You got your loggers and your ranchers and your miners. And the beauty of Missoula is that it just seems to work. No one seems to pass too much judgment on anyone, and everyone just seems to get along. Well, this summer, that seemed to change here. We had two of America's biggest subculture organizations come with the Hells Angels and the Rainbow Family, and we didn't open our arms to them. We closed our doors, and we made them feel unwelcome. And, peace is like a rainbow, and it takes all the colors of the spectrum to make it work. I came to town that weekend because I was curious like everyone else. The police department had built it up and hyped it up, and the media had hyped it up, and I came to see what happened. And my story is I was down there that night, and I watched this girl everyone talks about fall out of the back of the truck. About 10 minutes later, I saw her walking around the streets of Missoula, dazed, confused, drunk. Medical care had left her alone, so I tried to help her out. I had her in my arms, and the two of us got pepper sprayed together. She got thrown down the ground, beaten and arrested. I pleaded with the police department, asked her to take care of her. She had already been through enough, but they didn't. They wouldn't even listen to me. I got marched across Higgins Street Bridge that night by about 10 police officers. My eyes were hurting. The next day, I found myself in front of Bernice's Bakery as the sun was rising up over Mount Jumbo. I had tears flowing out of my eyes because I knew this town would never be the same after a night like that. Later that day, I found myself in the Bitterroot Mountains with a good friend, Chad. We climbed those mountains because we were trying to make sense of everything that happened. We screamed our heads and our hearts out. We prayed, and we hoped for a better tomorrow. I didn't sleep for 3 days after that night. The next night, I found myself up on Mount Jumbo, moving a lot of rocks, spelt law with a big question mark, because that's what I was wondering about. The next evening, I found myself up on Waterworks Hill, painting a rainbow peace sign, because that weekend, that sign had gone from a green peace sign to a swastika sign, and believe me, it felt like Nazi Germany had rolled through this town. Then it went to white, blank, and then went back to a peace sign, and then it got caught up in flames, and now it's blood red. This town opened its arms to me and embraced me, and I was disappointed that weekend. Thank y'all.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Seaton. I'm a resident of 521 Hartman Street, approximately 4 blocks from the intersection of Front Street and Higgins. Approximately 1:30 that morning on Sunday, I was downtown checking out what was going on, watching the Harleys roar out of town like everyone else. And I'm sure you've heard of the events that had ensued, and I'm not going to belabor you with the details, other than the young girl who fell out of the back of the truck. I was standing on the opposite side by the A.G. Edwards building. I saw it very clearly. Looking down at my watch, I hit my stopwatch. 3 minutes went by. Nothing. You could see the guys on top of the building where Wide World of Travel is. 4 surveillance officers had a bird's eye view of the whole thing. No action. You must ask why. I called my cell phone. I became concerned. I called 911. There's someone hurt. They're not moving. Certainly you can get someone down here. I was dealt with curtly and hung up on by a 911 operator. You must ask why. A few minutes go by. My watch is at 7 minutes. I approach a police cruiser in between the Bon Marché and the Uptown Diner. Excuse me, officer. There's a young person down in the middle of the street. They're not moving. Could you offer some assistance? Step away from the car, sir. I'm aware of the situation. Excuse me, I'm not trying to be confrontational here. I think this person is really hurt. I'd sure hate to have that hanging over the city's head if someone died while you were sitting here. Step away from the car or you'll be arrested. I hardly find that appropriate. And I think you must ask why. The ambulance shows up 11 minutes and 45 seconds later by my stopwatch. Hardly appropriate action, I would assume, for the amount of police presence and the heightened levels of emergency personnel in the town that evening. I was shocked. I stepped away from the crowd down to the ATM, which is about a half a block away. Picked up my cell phone one more time and I dialed Mayor Cadis' office so the message would be recorded with the time and the date, and I would file my formal complaint. And while I was doing this, I was bull rushed by people fleeing Utah police officers without name tags, macing indiscriminately over a half a block away. I had to run as fast as I could to avoid being pepper sprayed, when all I was trying to do...
3 minutes, sir.
Thank you.
My name is Ruth Odlin. I live on Overlook Way. I am the mother of 2 of the police officers here in Missoula. And when I heard that the Hells Angels were coming, I was very concerned for their safety. But I felt that Chief Lawrenson put into effect all of the measures that were necessary. And indeed, he did protect the safety of all of our officers. And I felt safe because of the helicopters, and I drove past the command post every day. My mother lives just a couple of blocks from there, and I never felt that she was better protected. And I want to thank Chief Lawrenson for keeping my boys safe, and for all of you for listening to all of the comments from all sides, because I hope too that you can come up with some constructive ideas to help get us through this. Thank you.
My name is Jill Pastian, and I'm a citizen of Missoula. I think the whole crux of this situation is that whether the people were climbing awnings or biting police officers or hitting them with their protester signs, they were told to disperse, and they didn't do it, and when they didn't do it, they were breaking the law. I watched the videos, and I heard the police officers ask the people twice, very nicely, to leave, and then I heard them tell the police officer, or tell the law-abiding citizens that if they didn't leave, they would be arrested. And then they were warned one more time. They were told if they didn't disperse, they would be sprayed with pepper spray. Pepper spray is appropriate for use with hostile people, which they were, who haven't responded to verbal commands. They were breaking the law, and that's the whole point. They shouldn't have been there. And I would also like to clear up a couple of things that people keep bringing up. One is the helicopters. There was one police helicopter going at night and one going during the day. And I'm sure you all just heard a while ago the helicopter flew over here. There's been fires in Missoula for weeks, and there are a lot of helicopters around, and they aren't police helicopters. And one other thing that people keep bringing up is the KPAX cameraman. What no one has mentioned is that when he took the video to KPAX the next day, and they saw how he was treating the officers on the video, he was fired. And I would also just like to say that Councilman McGrath had stated that people are afraid to live here and they're scared of the police. I think that's ridiculous. If people were scared of the police and didn't feel safe here, they wouldn't live here. And I, for one, appreciate everything the police did, and I feel perfectly safe living in Missoula.
Good evening. My name is Jerry Amundson. I live out by Frenchtown, and my mailing address is 500 West Broadway here in Missoula. I was raised in Missoula, went away to college, lived in Seattle, moved back here with my family and my husband because this is a good place to raise a family. And I'm very proud, much to the dismay of some of the people here tonight, to say that my husband is a city police officer. And I find it ridiculous that there is an undercurrent by some people tonight that there was a separate agenda, a secret agenda, to do something other than to protect public safety. You know, grabbing of signs, and this is something that's dismaying to me because people talk about the videos that were taken, and our media is very good at picking and choosing what they want you to see. they're going to give you the sensational, they're going to give you the things that want to keep tuning in. Now, the video you see of an officer pulling a sign out of someone's hand may have been preceded by that officer being struck by signs and trying to remove potential weapons from protesters, not only for their safety, but for the safety of other people in that crowd. Certainly, a drunken mob at 3 in the morning is a potential danger not only to other people and property in Missoula, but to themselves. And to do anything other than to try to intervene would be negligent upon the Missoula Police Department's position. And I know I'm biased because I know my husband is out there being asked to do things on an ongoing basis that put himself in danger for your public safety. Believe it or not, I believe that that is the premise of what the police department is based upon. And finally, you know, the results of an alleged unlawful activities in this country is arrest. And I don't care if you're a voyeur down there looking because the media hyped you up and you were interested in seeing these really cool bikes in this really stressful weekend and situation, or you're a media professional or a journalist that's been told to disperse and who does not, you still should be arrested. Thank you.
My name is Gwen Hoppy, and I was downtown with a video camera. I missed most of the events, but I was down there, for the gal falling off the truck and such. And I guess my constructive suggestion is for the police to get better megaphones, loud, clear ones. And I just heard that perhaps the helicopter gave some direction. I didn't hear it. Maybe it's because people were noisy next to me. I don't know. But kind of, I'm thinking of like first grade teachers. You give a direction. You make sure you have their attention. You give it loudly, and you tell them the consequences. You can bet if I had heard that I was going to be pepper sprayed if I did not go 1 block down or whatever, I would get out of there. I thought our direction was to just stay on the sidewalk. I wasn't sure. And I didn't hear the thing, if you do not leave or whatever, you will be arrested. So my suggestion is just that they get better megaphones, really loud ones, and tell people the consequences. That they will be pepper sprayed. I've known several people who were pepper sprayed who were standing there not doing anything, and so they were nonviolent. And also, I'm really against pepper spray. It's an assault thing. You can arrest somebody, but I think to assault them is wrong. Thank you, and thanks for coming out.
Hi, my name's Holly Taylor. I live at 723A Skylar Court, Missoula, Montana. I gave a little 3-minute bit to the City Council a couple weeks ago, so I'm not going to redo that, but I just like to show an example. I'm a Boy Scout. Am I a boy? No, I'm not. I'm a girl. Does that mean that I'm lying? I'm wrong? Because I have a little card that says I'm part of the Explorer group, which is part of the Boy Scouts. But I just say I'm a Boy Scout because I worked at a Boy Scout camp for 4 years. And so that's just a little clarification there. What's your name? Josh. Josh, I was really excited when you stood up because I saw the big canister. Could you stand up and show that, please? And he was right. He was very right in saying that it was an MK3. I had erroneous qualities in my speech. Apparently, I was wrong. It says MK46. Could you show the? Could you show the little one? Pick one. 4, 3. Could you hold both of them up? Not those, the big one and the little one. I failed to disperse. I failed to disperse. I did. Okay? I didn't do it for the hell of it. I did it because I saw cops, policemen, who I fund. I give money to them in the funds. I still will. Spraying people with large canisters of pepper spray and pushing people, that scared me, that infuriated me. I am not a taxpayer in Montana. I'm a taxpayer in Ohio. And if you want to know how many dollars I gave in taxes last year, come talk to me. I'm telling you, I am a citizen of America. I am a taxpayer, not in Montana, but I do say that I have a right to stand up for my fellow Montanans, because I do consider myself a Montanan now, when they are being hurt by the policemen. I don't care what they did to deserve to be hurt. But they were hurt, I saw it, and I reacted. I wish I weren't there. I wish I stayed camping. But I saw it, and I fought back. You will see me in the videos. I'm the one wearing the red suit and the black top.
My name is Pete Lawrenson, and I'm the police chief in the city of Missoula. And it's a job that I've held for 1 month shy of 6 years. And it's been an opportunity of immense privilege and honor to serve in that capacity. I intend to serve in that capacity a little bit further. I have two just very quick comments. It's been kind of a long evening tonight, and it was a little bit hot. Now it's beginning to cool off. The first comment is just a real quick clarification. Mr. Jack Wright got up at the very beginning and said I was appearing in a television video requesting funds for the police department, and that's not me. I think it's actually Deputy Chris Schultz. To my knowledge, I'm only appearing in 2 videos on television, one right now. One is to support the Boys and Girls Club of the city of Missoula, and within probably 2 or 3 weeks, I'm going to appear in a video requesting support for the United Way of Missoula County. But I do not appear in a video soliciting funds for the Missoula Police Department or the Police Memorial. But what I really wanted to say is, it's been a fun year, the year 2000. We started off with a bang on New Year's Eve with Y2K, and it seems like we haven't slowed down. And we're going to get through this. The statement that I want to make to the committee, and what I really wanted to do was seize an opportunity knowing that this is going to appear on MCAT. So I'm really making a statement to the community of Missoula and the greater community of Western Montana. The Hells Angels were an event that I didn't want to come to Missoula. I didn't think it was in the best interest of our community. But none the same, they came. We prepared to the best of my leadership ability. And we could have done things different, but the net result is we didn't have any serious bodily injury to any of our citizens or the Hells Angels. We have some people bit, we have some bruises, and there's no doubt that we have a lot of pepper spray out there. But what I most want to say is that the men and women of the Missoula Police Department, officers or civilian, from myself on down to the 2 fellows that we hired less than 3 weeks ago, are totally committed to work with the review committee, to work with the city council, but far more importantly, to work with the citizens of Missoula so we can determine exactly what Mr. Ruth asked, and that is, what kind of a community do we want to live in, and how will we respond to these types of situations in the future? So I stand here tonight to do no more than to pledge our commitment to bring this to a very peaceful resolution and an understanding that we will move forward, and we will do so because we have love in our hearts for each other. Thank you for the time.
We would ask that no other individuals, it's 10 o'clock now, and that no other individuals get in line, but we're going to go ahead and take care of those who are in line right now.
My name is Linda Tracy, and I live at 1859 South 10th Street West, here in Missoula. I was downtown on Friday night with my video camera, and for all the people in the media and otherwise who wonder why I was down there, I've been out of town all summer. I saw no Missoulian or independent telling me that there was Hell's Angels coming to town for however many weeks it was. What I saw was helicopters over top of the house that I was having a barbecue at, and we decided to go and find out why. So, being that I like video cameras, I took my video camera out with me. We went down there about 12:30 in the evening. We watched all the citizens on the street, all the helicopters in the sky with their lights off. We watched all the Hells Angels leave at 1:30. As soon as the bars were closed, about a half an hour maybe, they took off and left. The police then decided that all the rest of the crowd should disperse. I don't know how loud they said it. I don't know who they said it to. I do know that the crowd that I was with on the sidewalk, somewhere relative on the side of the top hat, we didn't necessarily hear them say, "You have to leave." What I saw was 2 Utah uniformed police officers stand in front of us and say, "Well, they're pushing them that way, so let's push them that way." That's what I heard. That's what my video camera picked up. That's what you see on some of the videotapes, hopefully, that you have in your possession. About that point, we were, as a crowd, as a group, were started to be shoved back. We all started to move. There was a big crowd next to us. I stepped back about 3 paces with a friend of mine. A lot of people went by me. I stood there. Cops started to come down. I just turned around and pointed my camera that way as I was walking backwards. About that point, they started putting their flashlights and their hands on my camera into my lens. I just held my camera up and started walking back with everybody else as they were pushing everybody. They got right up in the face of a friend of mine who was probably one of the only people on the sidewalk who wasn't yelling at the police officers besides myself. There were people yelling, there were people yelling at the police, there were people yelling at the crowd. All those people that you can see on these videos that were yelling got to walk away. My friend and I, who weren't doing anything but videotaping, she got arrested. What I want you to do is find out why. We still don't know. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Daryl Geist. I'm a Missoula resident, and I'm also Executive Director of Cold Mountain Cold Rivers. We're a nonprofit environmental and human rights group based here in Missoula. We were founded in 1990. I just wanted to point out a couple things. A lot of our friends, a lot of our neighbors, people we knew closely were arrested. Some of our members were pepper sprayed, videotaping these situations in Missoula. And we've also helped facilitate 2 meetings that were of citizens that were upset at the conduct that they were seeing in our community. We felt those meetings were constructive, they were civil, and we hope that those kind of avenues our members will continue to work on so that we can reach some solutions and prevent any type of violence and civil and human rights violations in the future. I've been in a position, I did have a chance to review quite a bit of the videotape, and one thing I do not understand is people's applause at people's comments that the conduct that was there, that was deployed in our community was appropriate, or that I was becoming of a police officer. Amnesty International recently classified pepper spray as a chemical weapon and its use against nonviolent, peaceful people as a fundamental human rights violation. people need to be aware of some very basic things. And you have a tough job. And tonight's forum needs to be expanded. You need to reach out, you need to be creative, you need to do more. And I know you've got a tough job already, but you need to do more, you need to get to the truth. It's important because at the core, that's really what people are here for tonight. They want to hear the truth. On a very disturbing level, I don't understand people's silence when people describe that their individual person has been violated or that civil and human rights have been violated. I don't understand your silence. But I want you to open up your hearts because we are here, we are in the community, we will work for nonviolent, civil, peaceful solutions to the problems that we now face. Thank you for your time.
I'm Richard Bullock. I'm a native right here in Missoula, 40 plus years. Been with the same employer for 23 years. And that has nothing to do with this except for the fact that with that, I've had disagreements with my supervisors. The bottom line is they're my boss, I'm doing the job, and we can work it out, but I respect their authority. One thing I hope really comes out of this, it's just kind of like watching the president thing, is that you follow the media, you get tired of listening to the garbage. The only reason why the pressure is off now is because the firefighters are taking the heat with the criticism that's going on with the Missoulians and people like that. That's all they want to do is complain. And they're not going to make everybody happy. I've got 3 children. I try to teach them best of my knowledge, right and wrong. And we seen helicopters flying through at night. And I explained to them what it's about, for the protection and watching over the Hells Angels. And their name speaks for themselves, but they have a reputation. We don't have to go into that. I believe Doug Chase and Pete Lawrenson and their employees below them and all the helping hand and the work that they lined out did an excellent job to protect the citizens in this town. I'm an avid Grizz fan, and it won't be long, in another week, the temperature's going to heat up out here on the ball field. But I guarantee you, the temperature's really going to heat up in November when the Bobcats come to town. And they will probably put a little bit more people on the street because the temperature's going to be heating up down there because of the partying. I go to all the games. I'm an avid fan. I don't go downtown. I have no reason to. I go to the game and watch a ball game. Now, I wasn't downtown that night with the Hells Angels because I didn't have a reason to go down there. And I grew up on the streets of Missoula with a hot rod. And them hot rods are music to my ears. But I didn't go down there because I didn't have a reason to be down there. And I think a lot of people that was down there went down there looking for some trouble and watching to see what they could pick up on, and they found it. I've been pulled over by an officer before for a light out, and I'm innocent. When he comes to the car, he doesn't know what he's dealing with, and it's hands on the wheels and don't get out of the car because he doesn't know what he's dealing with. These men put on their uniforms to protect us. Thank you.
My name is Ken Willett. I'm the police chief here at the university, and I can tell you that our community of 12,000 is real thankful that we have people like Doug Chase, Pete Lawrenson, and those 2 departments. For without them, there'd be a lot of things happening in this community. First of all, I want to say something to Mayor Katus. I was glad to see that he was out of town that weekend, because he has the faith in his police department and his officers and his fire department that they can handle the situations that they were hired to handle. I also want to thank the member of the Review Committee for taking part in this action. And I really want to thank the City Council, who have said less and listened more tonight than what they have to go through once a week in support of this community. First of all, there's one person in this room who will be harder on himself than any of you or any of the protesters or anybody else, and that's Pete Lawrenson. Pete puts his whole life into this job, and he gives of himself to this community. And I can tell you that he will make comments to the committee, he will provide information to the committee, and he will scrutinize every document in his department. And he will work on the things that happen, good or bad. I was down there that night. I have my own area to take care of. I want to make sure that things didn't spill over to the university. Now, one of the things we did was house some of the out-of-town officers. Our campus was very, very quiet. I'm glad the steps he took. But it's an old philosophy, damned if you do, damned if you don't. This hearing could be taking place here tonight for an altogether different reason. Were mistakes made? Probably. Will action be taken on it? Definitely. Will Missoula get through this? Positively. And I want to thank everybody that came tonight. I apologize for the quality of the air conditioning, but I think everybody kept their cool, and they should be applauded for that. And I thank you, Art, for taking on the task of moderating. Thank you.
Everybody's been very patient. You should give yourselves a round of applause. But I'm going to turn this over to the chair.
It's been a long evening. Any group or community is known not because it's perfect and not because it doesn't have any problems, but a group or community's strength is determined by how it deals with those issues. And what I saw here this evening was a very positive step. The civility with which we all listened and the care with which people presented their statements, I think is an important step in the process of learning and growing, and as many of you have said, coming together. We're just beginning our work, and we hope to conclude it soon. But we will be talking with some of you again, and I am very grateful to Art, to the folks here on the front table, the government officials and the other members of the committee, and to all of you for participating in what I think was a very helpful and encouraging process. Let's hope that the balance of this will go as well, and that we can use this as an opportunity to grow together. Thank you very much for coming.